Report-SMTN.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 161, and this is a very special world-exclusive import report coverage episode all about Persona 5 Scramble with special guest Shane from Warriors Dojo.
Hello, everybody.
As I said that, I realized I feel like I messed it up. Is it Warrior Dojo or Warriors Dojo?
Warriors Dojo.
It's important
you got it right.
It's important for SEO that I get that right, because someone is about to click that in there.
Yeah.
So Shane, thank you so much for coming on, as you are my number one pick for Muso/Warrior experts to come on here. So if people are not aware, first off, who are you, and what is your history, if you have any at all, with Persona/Shin Megami Tensei?
Okay, well, I'm a content creator for YouTube. I run 3 channels, but the 2 more important ones are Shane Brain and Warriors Dojo. Warriors Dojo is specifically just for Warriors content. My history with the Shin Megami Tensei series, I imagine, like most people, I started with Persona because those games blew up around the PS2 era. I kept hearing about Persona 3, and I played through that one, and man, that game hit me hard at the end.
As we're at the anniversary of it, 2 days ago now?
Yeah, and I've seen people playing through it again and also seeing similar takes. Never stop crying. And then I got Persona 4, and this was around the time that I was going to be traveling to a rural area in Japan. So that just synced up really well, because the feel of the town in that game, it was really similar to what I was experienced out there. So that game became really important to me. Because of they still had Shin Megami Tensei in the title then, I tried out some other games in the series. I remember playing through the Devil Survivor games on the DS. I also tried some of the older games too. I got the Persona remake, the English one for the PSP, and I almost completely played through that. And I also got 2, but it's like the PS2 version of it. I haven't had a chance to get through that, but yeah, I've also.
I'm assuming. Did you get the PlayStation Store version?
Yeah, I got the PlayStation Store version.
Okay.
Onto my PS Vita, so it's a whole thing.
That's okay. You're now automatically like top 5 guest now, because I'm a total fanboy for anyone who owns a Vita still. So just make sure you don't tell me if it's like dusty in your cupboard right now, or else my heart will slowly crack.
No, I love my Vita. I have so many games on that thing. The first thing I did when I got it was just buy tons and tons of digital games so that I don't have another supposed portable console with 50 games that I gotta lug around if I want to have a good library. They're all just inside the thing. So
when you went to Japan, though, were you like absolutely amazed at how many more games Koei Tecmo has on the Vita that they just never brought out over here?
Oh, well, that time was in 2009, so that was way before the Vita.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, when, for example, when I went to go pick up a Persona 5 Scramble, there's a whole Vita section. It's gigantic, and I imagine it looked very different in an American store or otherwise.
I don't like to talk about what the American Vita sections look like. Like when you, whatever you would did you ever take any trips after you went to Japan? Have you made any trips like in the lifetime of the Vita back to the States?
I was back in the States for about 2 years since that time, and let's see, those would be like 20. I think it was 2012 and 2013.
Okay, so yeah, like imagine launch level of the Vita in terms of okay, it's got like a 3DS sized section, and now if it has one at all, it's like, okay, here's all of our games loose, no boxes, and like a shoe case.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's sad.
That's okay. My room is basically like a Japanese Vita department section, because I think I have I'm maybe up to 350 now in terms of physical games.
Wow. About last year, I decided, it's about time that I finally played through Persona 5. And so I picked that up, and I had to get it in English because it's one of the rare games that comes out in Japan now, but it doesn't have just English already on the disc. A lot of games you can just buy the Japanese version, and, you put in your English setting PS4, and it just has English there. Yeah, the Persona and Atlas games typically aren't like that, and I think that's why they have the staggered release dates. I played through that last year, and it took me 120 hours, and it was a time.
That's okay. Don't feel bad. I literally just beat it a couple weeks before Scramble came out.
Yeah, I was pretty luxuriant with it. I took my time with it. I had, I would take frequent trips to Mementos in between, and a lot of people just save it for the end, I think. I'm not sure.
Weird little SMT tangent. I'm only going to ask because this is it makes a big difference if you have played them. Did you ever check out the 3DS version of Devil Survivor?
No, I never did.
If you ever are curious, the 3DS version of 1 is kind of more like your typical re-release of it adds one extra new day, and it's not it's a cool thing for it, but the biggest addition they really added outside of higher resolutions and stuff and widescreen support was voice acting. But the big thing with the Devil Survivor 2 version, I think it's called Break Record in Japan, is that one just adds a whole new epilogue that is its own game, and not like a Persona 3 Fez new game, like a 40-hour, basically brand new game.
Wow.
Yeah, that one was really funny because they announced it as sometimes games will get announced as hey, this small Japanese RPG is going to get announced 6 months before it's out in a little Famitsu blurb. It started as that, and it was hey, Devil Survivor 2 is going to come to 3DS next year, and then it was delayed for 3 years, and then it just came out of nowhere. They're yeah, there's a whole other RPG in here.
Huh. Good. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where it's really funny that's actually tied for biggest downloadable 3DS game, even though it uses entirely 2D assets, and it's just because of how much voice acting and game is in there. It's that game, which graphically, anyone who's played Devil Survivor 2, it is a pretty game, but it is not a graphically impressive game. And then above it, just by a little bit, is Xenoblade Chronicles 3D.
Wow.
Yeah, 3DS is a weird system. But but what inspired you to start making YouTube videos, though?
Around the end of my college days, I felt like I was seeing a lot of content covered out there. Actually, I imagine the coverage for the Warriors games partly inspired this because it's so bad.
That's actually that's an understatement. I think bad would be at least if someone covered it and was okay, they're all right, but this one was kind of derivative. I think because when did you probably graduate year-wise?
2011.
At that time, the only people I knew, at least in Western media, who covered those games remotely fairly was Jim Sterling.
Yeah, he enjoys the series. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would see a lot of perspectives out there, and I just felt none of it was matching how I felt about a lot of various types of games. And so I eventually started a blog, which I just called Games Brained, and I would write in that every week, just as a weekly project to get me writing more. Early in my college days, I thought I was going to be a writer, which I guess I kind of ended up one with how many scripts I write. But eventually, obviously, since I'm out here in Japan, that kind of changed, and I went more into international studies later on. But still, I thought it'd be good to keep up my writing skills by just starting to write every week, make an entry to that blog, and absolutely no one read it. So I kind of felt like I was shouting into the void. And I had made some videos in the past, and so I thought I would move to YouTube and just kind of start Games Brain there. And so I would make stuff on whatever I was playing at the time. I had videos on Yoshi's Island or the Sonic 2D games like that. But eventually I caught word of the release of Hyrule Warriors Legends. I think Hyrule Warriors, let's see, if I started in 2014, then Hyrule Warriors kind of came out right around that time.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was perfect timing for it, yeah.
Yeah, and so when Legends came out for the 3DS, I grabbed it early, and I grabbed it early because I was actually living in Taiwan, but Taiwan gets the same release dates as Japan. Mm-hmm. They just import all their games from Japan.
Actually, I think wasn't Legends just about worldwide, or if not like days apart?
No, it was about 3 months apart.
Oh, you're right. No, the reason I always forget that is because it leaked at E3, because it was supposed to be an E3 announcement, and so I always remember that as a as like that. But yeah, there was some spacing between that. The whole Legends thing was so weird in terms of like I don't know, like if it was the fact that it got leaked, or if it was one of those weird Wii U to 3DS ports, which like I feel like I never liked or really cared about any of them until Hyrule Warrior Legends, because that was one of those rare cases of like, no, when Legends came out, if you were playing it on a new 3DS, that was definitively and like hands down better in every way to the Wii U version.
Yeah. It ran at a more stable frame rate, and people are always criticizing how the game looks, but it plays really good. Obviously, like, they don't have the most enemies on screen, but they are represented in game. In fact, they have a whole system in that game where if you fill up your magic meter by collecting 5 pots or whatever, and you do your fairy blast, that actually hits all enemies that are not viewed on screen but are existing there. And so that's kind of how they skirted around, like, raising your KO counts quickly without having to wait for enemies to load in. So there's a lot of bad coverage about that game, but I was just covering it like I always wanted to cover a Warriors game, and I think that caught a lot of people's attention. That's actually where all my Warriors content started, and my coverage of Hyrule Warriors, which brought a lot of people to my channel. Back then it was called Games Brain, and I recently changed it to Shane Brain to kind of open up the topics that I can talk about.
I just realized what brought me to your channel was when Legends came out, and I think you had like a costume guide of going over like is your costume guide videos is what had popped up for me, and that had got me stuck on your channel of like going over each and every costume for everyone in the game, which there are very, very many of.
Yeah, those videos really blew up, and they still bring in people to my channel today. Yeah, I did costume guides for each of the DLC packs, and it was really cool how they were theming each of, because they were just recolors really, but they were theming each of the colors around some various character. Even the lady who's walking around the Wind Waker Outset Island with a pot on her head, she has a reference in one of those costumes. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's like the one thing that I think people give Koei Tecmo a hard time about, is like their DLC is very easy to, especially in games like DOA and stuff like that. And even some Warriors titles have like a very bad connotation of like not really giving you the best bang for your buck. But I still to this day look back at Hyrule Warriors and Hyrule Warrior Legends, those season passes, as like I've never put more time into a season pass than a game before this.
Yeah, it's like $25 gets you 200 hours or something like that. It's crazy. They definitely have some of the best value for money of any DLC I've ever seen, and that's pretty true on most of the how do I put this, the non Dynasty Warriors games.
Yeah, it's kind of odd because the
DLC
main lines don't get that kind of treatment, but even like Fire Emblem Warriors, even though they did things very differently with the way their DLC worked in terms of like the gameplay variations, like even that one was still like a really good like value in terms of what did they add, like 8 characters?
Yeah, they added a bunch of characters, and each character in that game had to come along with a bunch of supports. People always give that game grief for the clones, but or why we couldn't have like villain characters, but it was basically because they had built this support system into it. Every character had so many conversations with the already existing cast that doesn't make sense for them to be like bumping elbows with their mortal enemies.
By the way, I am not going to even like dip my toe into anything, because I know you are a big Fire Emblem fan, and especially in terms of like your coverage with like your retrospectives and stuff. I am such a weirdo of a fan. I have only ever played Fire Emblem Warriors. That is my only FE game.
That's where I was before I started this retrospective series. I knew nothing about the main series, which is why I jumped into it, because I always wanted to know about it.
Well, it's just funny because like there's such a big crossover, especially between like now with like Three Houses and like Persona 5. Like honestly, Three Houses is so similar to Persona 5 and everything I've heard and seen that like I see where the crossover is in fans. It's just one of those games of like, I know I would probably absolutely love those types of games. Like I loved intelligence systems like stuff even back in like the GBA, but it's like there are so many games I have in my backlog, especially long form RPG series that like I'm gonna need to go into like a like I'm like a post-apocalyptic situation of like, okay, I now have the time to give to these.
Yeah, like the series is turning 30 this year. Speaking of Fire Emblem, and I felt like, if they have 16 games out, I feel like I'm missing out a major part of the Nintendo gaming sphere. So I decided to go for that. But I wanted to briefly go back to Hyrule Warriors and like DLC. So when we had Hyrule Warriors and it kind of set the new bar for DLC, and then Fire Emblem Warriors did the same, it almost felt like this is like a separate series entirely from just Dynasty Warriors, which people just kind of paint onto stuff. Even people right now are commonly calling Persona 5 Scramble a Musou game. Mm-hmm. But I think when they think of Musou game, they think of like, you're on a big battlefield, you have to defeat the enemy commander, and so you just go around fighting and fighting and fighting. But like the speed at which, like, since you've played Dynasty Warriors 8, the speed, comparing that game to the speed at which like Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors plays is totally different, especially the combat with like dodge canceling and all the extra mechanics built into it, like self-buffing and the various effects that those take, boss fights and all those. It's very different, and I'd say Persona 5 Scramble is like an evolution of that. To me, Persona 5 Scramble is basically, combat-wise, it's like the sequel to Fire Emblem Warriors in mechanics.
Oh yeah, like, and I totally get that, because it's
P5, yeah.
It's so crazy, and like we're gonna get into this more when we're talking about the game, but like,
yeah,
if like let's say we went into this weird coma, we had followed none of the development news for Scramble, and we just picked it up with absolutely no information at all. Like, if you told me, like, okay, so who's the developer for this? I could see elements of Omega Force, but this is, like, once you actually get your hands on it, and I actually think it's funny of, like, I think the demo helped sell a lot of people when that came out. They did a really smart thing of releasing that demo right before release, because there was that notion of, like, hey, is this just going to be a Musou game? But, like, even after that demo, I kept thinking to myself, being like, wow, this, like, the demo is so shallow compared to what the whole game offers, which is so funny because like I did a whole impressions video on that demo, and I was like, this is fantastic, this is way deeper, this is like such a cool RPG, and like, and the like action elements, and like, wow, like I can't wait to see what they really do. And then like once you actually like get into the game, like I just felt like each level and after like, each major like story moment, I was like, okay, here's a new element that changes everything, and more elements and new characters and stuff, and being like it was just so, like, out of it, like, are we sure no one else made this game? Like, are we sure it was Omega Force? Because, like, yes, their, like, last game they really did in terms of mainline was Dynasty Warriors 9, which is very, very infamous. And, like, even though they, like, kind of did a bit of a step back with, Warriors Orochi 4, even that wasn't, like, super flawless and, like, a revolution for this. Like, honestly, when I was playing Scramble is so good, it made me actually think, you know what, I bet they put all of their best team on this, and that's why Dynasty Warriors 9 sucked. Because this game has been in development for like 3+ years, and that adds up a lot.
Yeah, obviously, it almost feels like the big open worldness of Dynasty Warriors 9 was just kind of forced on the team, almost like a publisher demand or something like that. Like, open worlds are big right now, fit it in somehow, and it completely doesn't work for the Warriors style game. And to come from that to this, and looking a little bit forward, we'll have One Piece Pirate Warriors 4 coming out, which looks very similar in gameplay to this, actually, with jump attacks and stringable combos, although they have like specific skill attacks in there too. I think they're going to be turning things around and gaining a lot of people's faith again from either of those projects.
Yeah, which is really, really good. Actually, just because I can't think of any other more perfect time to kind of throw this in, any longtime listener of the show has known that I am a big Koei Tecmo advocate, especially for their Musou and Warrior games. My little weird history of this is I played Dynasty Warriors 2 through 4 like any other young teenager at the time of like, I'm playing it, but I'm not like really exploring all the systems, and I probably like only beat one of them. And it was like, this was fun to play co-op, but I wasn't ever like actually kind of like digging into the systems of all of those games and really just more messing it around as like a fun beat 'em up kind of game. And then for whatever reason, from 4 till 8, I played nothing. And I didn't even play 8, actually. When I told you I played 8, that was actually a lie. I got 8 Extreme Legends Complete for review. I was writing for the site at the time called Gaming Union, and they had an extra code they wanted to try online co-op with. And he's like, hey, I have this for PS4. Do you want to check it out with me? And I'm like, yeah, I remember Dynasty Warriors is pretty good. And playing 8 with Extreme Legends and everything on there, it was like such a complete package and like hit me with such nostalgia. And then like comparing all the new systems and mechanics and stuff they had done. Because I had followed all of the games, especially during the PlayStation 3 era, of like Dynasty Warriors was in that weird funk of like, yeah, you're trying new stuff, but also trying, like, it just kind of felt like they were holding themselves back because they weren't really sure what they wanted Dynasty Warriors to be. And there was just something about 8 that just, for me personally, hit me in such the right place that it really sparked not only a resurgence in me wanting to play them, like, in terms of, like, oh, I'm going to check out more Dynasty Warrior games. Like, after 8, I'm just going to go off my head immediately what I did. Went into Empires, 8 Empires. That was my first Empires and actually really, really liked it. Checked out, oh no, I'm going to totally forget this, but help me out if you know this. It's the Koei Tecmo game. It is like medieval fighting, but it looks like Romance of the 13 Kingdoms, but is a lot more action-y. And I'm totally forgetting the name. It has like it's like Heaven... It's like Heaven something. Oh no.
Oh, is it the one about is it European?
Yes.
Bladestorm?
Yes, it's the Bladestorm PS4 port. I remember I bought that. I was like, oh, I have a discount. Why not? I'll check this out. And I just tried like everything. Like I tried Pirate Warriors. I did 1, 2, 3. I did my first Samurai Warriors with 4. I even was very extra and I imported 4-2 because that got a physical release in English, not in America, but in Asia for Vita. So I played 4 on PS4 and 4-2 on Vita. I played the strategy one, which I always forget its English name because like it has like a weird name in Japan.
The strategy one,
like the tactics. It's I swear it's like it can't just be Dynasty Warriors Tactics, but I know if I type that in, that's what it's gonna.
There is a Dynasty Warriors Tactics.
Yeah, like came out on PS4 and it came out on like PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Vita, and I'm totally forgetting what it's called. It's not the GBA Tactics, because I know that is its own game.
Maybe I don't know that one then.
Dynasty Warriors God
just thinking of Romance
Seekers.
of the Kingdoms one.
Do you remember
that one?
Yeah, God Seekers.
I never played that one.
Yeah, like I got into all the weird ones. I played Arsland. What else did I do? Obviously Hyrule and Fire Emblem. But I just like sunk myself into everything, and I just felt like I was on this never-ending train of, okay, if it's by Omega Force, I'm probably going to like it. It's going to have varying levels of quality, but I'm super on board for the fandom. And what's so funny is what actually killed it for me is right before 9 came out. Because what did 9 come out? January 2018, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so I had just met my girlfriend at the time a couple months back, and she was the first girl I had ever met, who, let alone significant other, who was like, oh yeah, I love playing Dynasty Warrior games. And I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. Our first game to experience together is going to be DW9. It's going to be the best experience of our whole fucking lives.
Oh, that's a tragedy.
Oh no, it's like half good, half bad.
Okay.
I canceled my pre-order the day of, because somehow I made it all the way up until launch day, and I didn't know this. That game didn't launch with co-op. And that was the whole selling point of I wanted to play through that with co-op with her.
Okay.
So when I found out it didn't have co-op, I did the obvious move. I went to GameStop. I technically bought the game for my... because it had a steelbook at the time, which is actually a really nice-looking steelbook. I then returned to the game immediately to get my money back, and it was like, okay, I have this steelbook, and I will now pick up Dynasty Warriors 9 many discounts later. And I totally fallen off for the longest time outside of like Fire Emblem Warriors and Hyrule Warriors stuff, and it was just... that game was just such a momentum killer for me, because even like I loved Warriors Orochi 3 and stuff, even though that's like such a garbled mess of systems and stuff. But like I don't know, like I don't know like how you felt with it, but God, when something about just 9 coming out, it just like it made me legitimately question why I was a fan of that series. Like that's like how like offended I felt by it.
I never thought that would be a change that would stick. My history with 9 was that, you know, I heard it was coming out, and this around the time that I was covering other stuff. Mainly I was probably more focused on Fire Emblem Warriors at the time. I saw what it was looking like, and I watched, like I kind of explored into it by watching gameplay videos of it, just like no commentary gameplay videos of it, and I could see like this is not what I'm interested in, so I just sort of ghosted it and let it pass me by. I remember times when they did a similar combat, like one button combat system with Dynasty Warriors 6, and that passed the same. And just by seeing the reaction to this game, I knew that that wasn't something that was going to stick around. The series is too long running to die from a single bad entry like that. So for me, in my head, Dynasty Warriors 9 is just this weird thing. I eventually did pick it up just out of curiosity around the time I was starting Warriors Dojo, where I will sometimes do just, unscripted, jump into a game, what's my reaction to playing as this character. Sometimes it's characters that I know a lot about, sometimes I've never touched them before, and I kind of go through the process of finding out how they play. I did that with a character in Dynasty Warriors 9. And so, yeah, it's almost like a completely different thing. I actually enjoy just running around the world in that game because it's so expansive, although the minute-to-minute like battle gameplay is so boring that I almost wish that wasn't in there. Just kind of a big China exploration sim would be better off, I think.
Do you follow much of the like news cycles from announcement to release, or because I like a lot of the Omega Force games really overlap in terms of release? Because I'd forgotten that Fire Emblem Warriors was already out at that time, so like 9 sucking at the time didn't really hurt as much as I kind of thought, because I was like, well, I'm still playing like the DLC for Fire Emblem Warriors, so it wasn't like I have nothing good to play.
Yeah, I attempted to, but with running my other channel, it's just impossible. Like, I tried it for a bit at the start of Warriors Dojo. Like, there would be, like, this leak out about a new DLC character coming to the new version of... not a new DLC, but a new additional character coming to the new version of Warriors Orochi 4 Ultimate. And then there's this other news about One Piece Warriors 4, and then there's the trailer release for Persona 5 Scramble, and then, there's another character for Warriors Orochi 4 that just got revealed. And it's like, if I covered that, I would never get anything done. Especially, like, I cover the stuff that's really important to me now. For example, when the demo for Persona 5 Scramble came out, I kind of went back so that I could cover that. But it's just too much to keep up with. As far as I'm concerned, the last real Warriors game was Fire Emblem Warriors, and I really got to wait and see since Dynasty Warriors 9, like, before committing to a game to cover that extensively.
I don't know if you have an answer to this, but I was thinking about this recently. Obviously, if anyone isn't aware, Dynasty Warriors 1, technically in the West, isn't what Japan calls Dynasty Warriors. Like, they're always a game behind. I don't know if you know the answer to this. What happened with Warriors Orochi? How is that a game behind as well? That one I never understood.
For that one, it's something like the second game was just a remake of 1, and so they went like Warriors Orochi, and then they had like Warriors Orochi and some subtitle.
Oh, you know what? I think I remember
Orochi
what
2.
it was. Yeah, because that was like a weird mid-generation thing of like
Exactly.
It was like right at the cusp of the 360s. So they're like, okay, well, we'll make a version of 2 that's not really 2, and that's like really a 1.5.
Yeah, and they just called it 2 in the West, and so that's how y'all are one up.
You think like at some point they would just pull a Square Enix and just try and fix the numbers, but at this point they're just very okay being like, no, Dynasty Warriors 8 is also Dynasty Warriors 9 in the West, and this makes zero sense to anybody.
Yeah, it's just because in Dynasty Warriors they put that sheen in the middle, which means new, and I guess they didn't want to call it New Dynasty Warriors for the second release of the series. They do that a lot, actually, with a gameplay, like a game that is kind of setting the bar for the next entries in the series, but is very, very different from the previous one. They do that a lot in Japan. They just throw sheen on top of it.
Okay, so before we dive into Scramble, I'm going to ask you 2 semi-related Warrior questions to kind of like let me settle the waters in terms of like what your mentality is with the series. First one is an easy one. You have 3 titles. First 3 titles that come to mind. They don't have to be your top 3. When I just say name me 3 Warriors games, what are the first 3 that come to your mind?
Just name 3?
Yeah, just 3. Like, so whatever, when I think of like, all right, what are like, Shane, tell me 3 Warriors games right now. You're meeting a random stranger. What are the first 3 that come to your mind?
Okay. Dynasty Warriors 8. Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors.
That was the whitest of white bread answers, and I appreciate it. And the other one I'm going to say, what is your biggest disappointment in the Omega Force Warriors games, or in whether it be spinoff or mainline?
Biggest disappointment. My biggest disappointment from the games. I mean, the games are what they are. The biggest disappointment for me about anything surrounding it is general coverage about the Warriors games. Maybe that's a cheat answer because it's swerving past your original intention.
No,
maybe,
and I
but...
mean, you do bring up a great point. Like that's, like I said, one of the reasons I found it is because there are so few, like not even just channels on like YouTube, but just like in general coverage of these games, which is so weird because they have such a diehard fan base. Like the Warriors, there's a
really
reason they're up to
it.
Dynasty Warriors 9. It's not because 10 of us are buying like 1,500 copies.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that know a lot about these games, and there's a lot of people that don't know a lot about these games. And for whatever reason, the group of people who know a lot about these games, like none of them are content creators. So we just have one-sided coverage of it, which is what I tried to kind of counteract with my stuff.
See, I don't know. I have so many series that like I would love to pour as much time into as like I do with like this weekly podcast and other stuff with it. Because what's really funny is there's always a big misconception, even though I've been doing this for almost 8 years. Like, Shin Megami Tensei isn't even my favorite game series of all time.
Sure. Warriors isn't probably my favorite game series either. It's just a series I love.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird things. Like my favorite game series of all time is like a weird ever-flowing tie of like, well, I guess a little less so now, of like Metal Gear Solid is always the big one for me, but it's like, what am I gonna do, just like make the like rag on no games podcast every week? And then like I looked at the market of like, okay, I love Final Fantasy, there are tons and tons and tons of things doing that, and so I kind of just like knocked down the line of like, okay, what do I feel like there's a content gap for in terms of stuff where there's coverage, which is so funny, like to think that like this is true even now, but like in 2012 when we started the show, it was just called the Persona Podcast, which like, boy, what a great name. But it was just one of those things of like there was nobody covering it, which was really funny because Persona was still so popular, but like outside of random forums and like fan blogs, which very rarely got updated, there wasn't like weekly coverage for this. And like these series, like even though they're extremely niche by big RPG standards, they still have so much news coming out. And I find it so funny that after all of these years and whatnot, there have been other podcasts, but they've always just kind of died down, and I've always like kind of been like a constant, give or take the like year and a half hiatus I took from like 2017 to 2018. But the funny thing about it is just like I always get like asked, I don't know if you ever get this with other Warriors content creators, like do you ever have people who will come up to you and be like, oh hey, this person's now covering Warrior stuff as well?
I have never heard that once.
Okay, so I get this a lot of like people be like, hey, there's this new Persona podcast, or there's new Shin Megami Tensei podcast, and I'll be like, oh, that's cool, and they'll be like, do you care? Like, are you mad they're gonna do it? And it's kind of weird. This is gonna sound like super like egotistical, but this is just like because I've seen it happen so much. I always am like, that's really cool that there's like different markets coming up, and I'd always be like I enjoy because like hearing other people's opinions, but like everything I've seen over the past like almost decade now at this point is you're gonna do like 10 or 12 episodes, and then everyone's gonna get bored and they're gonna do something else, because it's like it's not like, hey, I'm able to do this every week. It's like you have to have that like passion of like, if I was doing this podcast every week for 8 years and I stopped caring after like Persona 5 came out, this would be a very depressing podcast.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the truth of people starting up creative projects. A lot of them die in infancy just because people don't have the drive to keep them going, and at times you got to push yourself, and sometimes you do have to take breaks too, but the point is that you come back. Whereas a lot of people, they don't really understand the time investment and the mental investment to like running a channel or running a podcast or these things. So I think that's true with almost any game series or any other topic on that you might see on YouTube. Like there's a lot of failed channels out there, and a lot of people like they expect success right away, so they just kind of give up on it. So.
Yeah, and like
It's an endurance game.
like even when I say that, like I took like that year plus break from after the release of Persona 5, which you would almost think is like channel suicide of like the most hyped game or whatever in years, like shortly after like less than a year Persona 5 being out, I just kind of had to stop for personal reasons. I still was growing the community. Like we have like a very vibrant like Facebook page, which like just hit now like over like 6,000 people. And so like there was like still that thing of like, yeah, I'm not doing the show weekly, but like I'm still like talking and interacting with people like on Twitter or Facebook, and like that community still being there made me feel better. Cause like it was like I knew that I could go back if I really could like put myself into it again. Because like a lot of it wasn't like, oh, I don't really care about this anymore. It was legitimately just a lot of personal stuff, which, if anything, then in like late 2019, when I was able to start doing the show again, I was so much more impassioned, because it was like, imagine if you have your computer and you can only write scripts for like a year. You're not, like, if you really care about what you're doing, you're going to just keep cranking out, like, the best stuff you have, and then be like, as soon as I can do something with this, I'm going to, like, kick ass, because, like, it's just, like, sitting in there festering with you, as opposed to, like, you can't do anything, but you know you'll be able to eventually.
Yeah, I had to do a similar break when I was moving back to Japan. I just had so much going on, and I needed to adjust to new, like, where I was living and my new company and all of that I just had to kind of drop off of YouTube. But I was still thinking about it constantly, and that was what like kind of got the wheels going in my head when I wanted to like come back, do more long form coverage, split off Warriors coverage, change the name from Games Brain to Shane Brain. Like that was all going for me at that time too. It was like a 10-month break where I didn't make any videos at all, but I was still like thinking of stuff and planning stuff and writing some stuff.
This is like very inside baseball. Have you done much like contact with Koei Tecmo in terms of like having them like either provide you like stuff that helps with coverage, or because I know they can kind of be hit or miss in terms of like how like who and what they work with?
I have been successfully ghosted by them.
What? Really?
Yeah, I contacted them and I was like, "Hey, I've covered this. I've had videos reaching at this level. I'm going to this channel, which is just going to specifically cover Warriors stuff, and so I'm interested in setting up a contact." And nothing.
Wow. Okay, we will have to talk after this show, because I now feel
you're sitting on millions of Warriors view. I
feel personally slighted for you. That is so great, because it's so funny. Is like, I don't know if you ever like look at their social media. It's like they're like surprisingly actually pretty active, especially with a lot of their like stuff like the like Gust games and like RPGs and whatnot. And it's like so funny. It's like, yeah, I feel like there's just like that one thing of like you have to kind of hit the right person at the right time. Like this is the weird thing when I was covering stuff editorially for game websites. Koei Tecmo America, I swear to God, just didn't exist for like 4 years. Like they existed in terms of publishing, but no one at their PR would ever answer back. So I decided I got a contact from their European agent. Their European agent then would get me American codes. Because for whatever reason, their American agent was able to get codes out of their Western office, but their Western office would never email anyone back in the West.
So I emailed the wrong email.
Yes, that's the weird thing. It's like, I know tons of people who work at Koei Tecmo, but they all are in Europe, but they are all very equally willing to help people in the West as well. It's like super weird. I'm guessing they must just be like the Western branch is more based out of Europe and stuff, kind of like the reverse of Sega and Atlas, where like most of the Sega stuff happens like in California, even though like they recently like rebranded from like Atlas used to be Atlas USA, and now they're just Atlas West. So kind of similar to that. But
well,
we
have to send off a second email then.
Yeah, exactly. So we have totally side skirted every little question. But before we go into Scramble Talk, I'm going to give you a super softball question that you can. There's no way you can't mess this up.
Oh boy.
Subbed or dubbed, specifically for these types of games.
I like dubbed.
Okay, that's the correct answer. I didn't want you to think there was a wrong or right answer, but you said the correct answer. I appreciate that. So thank you.
I mean, for an American who's living in Japan, I see, I'm fine with the subbed versions, but there is just something about an experience in your native language. It's a bit more relaxing, and that's how I like to approach, especially Persona games. Mm-hmm. We're just hanging out with the crew, whatever the group of characters is. It's such an enjoyable thing for me that I wouldn't want to give that up just so I could hear the Japanese audio, and look for those minute differences. Like, come on.
Okay, so now that we've gotten the hour-long semantics out of the way, so
Oh, yeah.
our main topic of the show is not us jerking each other off about Warriors games. Persona 5
not.
Scramble, otherwise known as, and guys, don't tell anybody, but this game's coming out to America. I know they don't want anyone to know. Fun fact, if anyone is not aware, this game is actually not announced for the West, and it's really funny. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Since I was tentatively trying to cover Warriors stuff then, I was trying to cover Warriors announcements back when this game first was released revealed for Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, cool, they're talking about Persona 5 Royal, and then suddenly everyone starts messaging me on Twitter like, oh, there's a new Musou game, and so I watched the trailer and I was super excited for it, and then just nothing, no words at all, no new updates about it, and all they were doing was talking about Persona 5 Royal in Japanese, and eventually that game came out in Japan, and then they started bringing up the Scramble talk. So I have a theory that they will not say a single word about Persona 5 Scramble until Royal comes out in the West, which is is it like March 29th or something like that?
March 31st.
31st. Okay.
If I had a cowbell, it would be dinging very loudly because you are correct. My think tank group, because I am so anal and wrapped around like how the Western like release cycle works for everything. I don't even like tell people, oh hey, it's coming, you'll hear more eventually. I've like now gotten to the point where like if not within days, I am 100% certain the month this game is coming out. This game comes out in June and August. Sorry, this game comes out in June for like Korea and other parts in Asia, similar to how Royal came out last month in Korea and whatnot. And going off of like the release timeline, there's no way that this game is not coming out in the West in July. And also, because of how this game is set, starting in July, and it is a summer-themed game.
It's a very summer game.
It would be the most perfect timing. And also because, like, this year, if you look at the release calendar, it's a quiet summer. Like, our biggest game we have releasing this summer right now is Ghost of Tsushima, which is very not up this game's alley. So it's like, they are just asking for, like, a hit on their hands by releasing... Like, it's the opposite of Persona 5 Royal. Whereas Persona 5 Royal is just releasing between, like, Resident Evil, Final Fantasy VII Remake, all these big heavy hitters, like Doom and Animal Crossing. Like, throw this game out in the summer, let people just take it, like on their Switch on the go, or, like, play it on the big screen, and just, like, soak it all up, because that cannot release at a better time.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are looking forward to Royal, but I am not that interested in it. Like... but when I'm hearing about Persona 5 Scramble, like, it takes another one of my favorite series, and it's also a sequel to the events of Persona 5. Like, I was so super into that. So I have no doubt that it will be coming out at that time. I actually went ahead and wrote my character guides for every single one of the characters. I have, like, 13,000 words written about this game so far. But I'm thinking, like... stuff that I've put out there thus far, like, there's not too much attention yet because people don't even know if it's coming out.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, I don't know, because a lot of your coverage and impressions you've really just been doing outside of the couple of videos you did right at release, has been, like, primarily through Twitter, and I've been having...
Yeah, my Twitter timeline has been blown up with it.
But I've been having this, like, internal conflict in me because, like... I want to shout from the rooftops about all of these awesome moments. And there's some that, like, I have had to share, whether it be, like, the Jack Frost scene that, like, definitely blew up at, like, release day, or, like, snowboarding and the skateboarding, like, little moments and stuff like that. But, like, there are all these little, like, whether it be character moments, animation moments... like stuff in the story, or like just crazy gameplay things. My favorite thing I've been doing, I kind of stopped just because I had lost track, but I want to continue it a little bit for the other bosses I haven't done, is I had a trend of every time I beat a boss in Scramble, I would put a no context tweet about that boss. So for example, what was it? When I beat the boss from stage 3, I just typed in the words Fat Elsa. And with no context, I just put that on Twitter. And even hearing that now, you have not been spoiled. But when you see that boss for stage 3, you'll be like, okay, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I would just say, for my no context about that same boss, I would just say Haru C3.
Oh yes.
Have fun.
Oh my god. Yeah, so this game I feel like is just a big fat juicy cheeseburger, and I can just start at any side of it. I've been ranting and rambling for so much. When it comes to like Scramble, though, I know I guess we should cover this because we have a very important thing to note of first. Both of us played PlayStation 4. Neither one of us imported the Switch one.
Yeah, I played the demo on Switch, but yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things of like, I know I'm going to pick up the Switch version eventually, like probably whenever the Western version comes out, I'm still going to double dip and play again on PS4 just for my collection, but like, I played the demo and I was like, okay, because actually when the demo dropped, I only had my Switch on me at work, so I played it at work and I was like, this is what happened. I played it first on Switch and was like, huh, they really translated the look of Persona 5, especially like the PlayStation 3 original version. I was like, it definitely feels like you're playing Persona 5 on like a PS3 when you're playing on Switch, especially like handheld mode. And then as soon as I played the PS4 version, I was like, whoa, okay, no, there's no way I'm playing. Like, once you play like one compared to the other, it's like night and day, like how good they look. And even...
Yeah, are you playing on a PS4 Pro? Or
I am a Pro. Because I know you're a standard PS4.
I have a standard one, yeah, so I'm interested to hear some stuff.
Yeah, like this game visually makes Persona 5 Royal look like a last-gen game, which is saying a lot.
Yeah, one thing I want to note is that something that a lot of like people who are really into Fire Emblem Warriors wanted to hear about this game is, does it have like a quality mode and a frame rate mode? And that's one of the first things I want to note is that it does. It really does.
No, but this is the weird thing. Only on PS4. The Switch version, whether it be handheld or dock, is only one mode.
Does it not have that?
No.
I was going to say, I felt for sure that would make more sense to be in the Switch version. Because I can almost see no difference in the PS4 version. I wanted to know, like, wow, this is interesting.
So on Switch, Pro,
on the standard,
like
on the Pro, what happened?
Okay, so yeah, standard, and I've seen your video because there's not like a lot of like visual comparisons between frame rate and presentation mode. You're basically identical. I think it may be a couple of frame dips in like the really really heavy sections, but like
completely unnoticeable.
Yeah,
I've spent over 100 hours in this game.
Exactly. So the only difference with the PS4 Pro one is if you're doing presentation, that 100% bumps it up to 4K and kind of makes the frame rate. I'd say it sometimes goes below like 60, but like never below like 55. It has like really really tiny dips, and I had to go to another friend's house because I don't actually have a 4K TV, but what I enjoy doing, and this is kind of the funny thing of, and this will get brought up in comparison later, it's kind of funny, even though PS4 Pro was like sold as like, hey, play games in like 4K, PS4 Pro, since I bought it, was like, wow, this just makes 1080p games look the same, but run the best. So when you're playing on PS4 Pro in presentation mode, it never dips. Whereas in PS4 Standard, it kind of dips every now and then. It's like the best way to play it is like no super sampling. It's just hard locked to 1080p, and it just does the most rock solid 60 frames, and it's really nice.
That sounds really good. Like the gameplay, it feels super smooth. Like I don't have the ability to like catch exactly what the frame rate is.
Oh, I know. So I want the Digital Foundry coverage of this so bad, but I know that's not coming for many, many months.
Yeah, I would compare it to people who played Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition on the Switch. That game, it feels like it's constantly at 60, whereas it's like usually at 60, but sometimes going to like 55 and stuff. But it like that's such a minute difference that it just feels super duper smooth, and that's what this felt like on a standard PS4 in the quality mode. I didn't use the frame rate mode for almost anything.
Yeah, because on standard you really don't really need it. I think it's literally just in there because it's easier to like have it in there for Pro as opposed to take it out and then detect it otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's less for accommodating weaker systems like the Switch and more for, giving that super beautiful mode to people who have a PS4 Pro and a 4K TV.
Yeah, and what's really funny is because like we were talking about how the demo, it gives you a good taste of what the game feels like, is that the game, especially in terms of its battles, it gets so much more intense. Of like, there were moments in the demo where I was like, okay, you can tell the Switch is pushing itself to keep that 30 frames. That like when I was playing further into the game, I'm like, wow, I cannot imagine this game in handheld mode. Like I'm like struggling for the Switch at the thought of it running in handheld on some of those later bosses because they just get so crazy.
Yeah, it would be yeah, especially the boss of. Do you want to spoil city locations?
Oh yeah, all the cities are out there.
Okay, all right. So the boss of Osaka.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that stuff would be nuts. But just
Man,
thinking about
yeah.
like having a jail to explore portable on the go would be really good too. So that would almost be worth the downgrade for me. Like I would play it more for portable mode than for docking it. Like if you're gonna dock it for most of your play, just get the PS4 version if you have that system.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly it's not really stopped people for it. I will say, have you followed the sales of the game so far?
Not really, but I have heard that the PS4 version is vastly outselling the Switch version.
It is destroying it. So we have 2 weeks of confirmed sales, thanks to at least whoever the source is, and always the Famitsu articles every week. So
I could grab my Famitsu magazines over there and see if it's in there.
yeah, so basically the game started, I think its first launch week sold over 200,000, and two-thirds of that was PS4, which was vastly more than people were thinking. And the second week, the PS4 sales only like got cut down by like I think a third. And the Switch sales, I think it was in 8th place this week. It was a kind of a light week in terms of releases in Japan. So it got knocked down on Switch to 8th place, and I think it only sold like 10,000 copies, which is like still okay for a game like that. But like comparing how like many people like have like for the numbers to stay that strong, but only for the PS4 version, I find is really, really interesting because the word of mouth I felt after the demo and especially after release was like, hey, if you are someone who cares about this, I don't even think it's like a system lineage thing, because I know a lot of people were like, oh, the PS4 version only sold better because that's where Persona 5 is, because I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I like my Switch more than my PS4 or whatever. Like, once people were getting their gameplay impressions and stuff out there and you were really seeing the game, it was like, okay, yeah, this definitely is like a big screen kind of game if you want to experience it in its best presentation.
Yeah.
But like that being said, I will say I've talked to quite a lot of people who do have the Switch version. They are enjoying it outside of the technical problems it has. It's not even really fair to say it's more of just limitations because the Switch is very old hardware, and the fact that it runs what it does as well as it does, I think it's just one of those odd ones of important note. It's not using the same engine from Hyrule Warriors or Fire Emblem Warriors. It is using that more modified engine from I think it is the more updated one from Warriors Orochi. So it's got that going for it, but it also has stuff that Koei Tecmo does not do a lot with. Omega Force does not do a lot with, of encapsulating that Persona 5 filter over everything. And what's funny is I think on the Switch it's like, okay, it definitely stands out, but because of how fuzzy it is, it looks a little less impressive because like it's not as sharp. But like when I'm playing through it on, like my best comparison is this: when you start up the game, that like shot of everyone with the like silhouette as they're in front of the van, like looking at that on Switch and then looking at that on like PlayStation 4, it's like the way I described it to people in my impressions video was the games both play fantastically. It's like go back to 2014 with Super Smash Bros. On Wii U and 3DS. You're getting the same game. One just looks a lot crisper and smoother. The other one has very, very thick and jagged black outlines.
I see.
So, like, I would never say, like, you're getting a worse version for it, but I think it's just, like, for me personally, it was, like, there never really was much of a question of it, of like, okay, I like playing on my PS4 more, I like trophies, and I very rarely touch the Switch because I still play on my Vita way, way, way more. Like, the last game I played on Switch was Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and and before that I hadn't touched it in like 6 months. So, like, for you, though, what led you to pick up the PS4 version as opposed to the Switch?
So I, before getting into Persona 5 Scramble, the game I was covering on Warriors Dojo was Fate Extella Link, and so that game released on the PlayStation 4. It's a Warriors-like. It's not by Koei Tecmo or Megaforce. So I got the Switch version, and I kind of kicked myself for that later because, again, there is a big visual difference, and when I'm gathering footage, I want to have the best quality footage available. So that it was more for I wanted really good looking footage. I actually think that Warriors games are some of the best fits for portable game like systems like the Switch. But like even though I would regret not being able to just lay in bed and play it as easily, yeah, I thought for this one I would definitely go for PS4, especially because I already had the experience of playing the Switch version in a similar situation with Fate Extella Link, so I thought I'd go with the PS4.
Okay. Weird little aside. I don't think. I think actually we talked about it on last week's episode, but this is more of a thing for you. Do you have a Japanese copy of Persona 5 or Royal?
I have a Japanese copy of Persona 5 and an English copy of Persona 5. And somehow another English copy of Persona 5.
So, are you aware of what the save?
Ended up with
Are you
two.
aware of what the save data bonus was for having both of those in Scramble?
No, I didn't even notice a pop up.
Yeah, so it's actually only stuck to the regional version. So I don't have the Japanese version of either, but a friend of mine who did alerted me to this, listener of the show, Reese. If you have a Japanese copy of Persona 5, you get the battle theme from Persona 5, and if you have the Japanese copy of Royal, you get the battle theme from Royal, and it works just like the DLC songs do, where you can play them specifically or shuffle them in with everything else, which is what I think is one of the coolest part about that, because...
Well, yeah, I still have my copy... Oh, sorry. I still have my copy of Persona 5, the Japanese version, but I think I might have deleted my save data just to save space on my PS4, so maybe I should put that in there and see if I can get that.
Yeah, I have very desperately been trying to think of what is the quickest and cheapest way that I can get save data without actually needing to buy a copy just for 2 songs in this, but I guess that is like a testament to how much I really like that save data bonus idea, even though it is region locked to the versions, because it's like, normally it's like, hey, here's 5 healing items and a slap on the ass, whereas like with this one, I think the way they incorporated the DLC music, especially with the pre-order stuff, I don't know how much like those DLC songs really resonated with you, but like when I got the game and like was checking them all out, I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like the fact that they just added a shuffle feature is such a nice touch, because it was like, okay, you don't just have to hear this one battle theme. Like, yes, it's a really great song, and it's cool to experience that kind of naturally, but I'm sure, like, when I go through New Game Plus, it'll be a lot more fun to just get all of those songs, put them on shuffle, and just, like, keep that variety going.
Yeah, to clarify, in the actual settings, you can set, if you want to listen to the Scramble soundtrack, or these other songs, and you can just have it shuffle through them all. And yeah, I started doing that in my second run, and it's pretty fun. Some of them I don't recognize, but the ones that I do recognize, it's really great. I definitely think it doesn't fit the gameplay very well, but it just brings that kind of happy feeling when I hear the Persona 4 battle music or whatever going into it.
That's one of those ones of it's definitely more of a like Omega Force like wink and a nod. Especially it's nice because there's not stuff like costumes and other little things like that they could really do to represent it. Like they have a lot of really small touches referencing stuff like that's not just Persona 5 but also Persona 1, 3, and 4 stuff I've seen. I don't think I've seen anything from 2, but I'm sure I'm missing something.
Yeah, actually, since you said costumes, that is one thing that shocked me about this game, is that there is no costumes. Like Persona 5 had so many great ones in there that I was surprised that they didn't somehow fit it into this release. I'm assuming that's going to come later.
Yeah, so that's the weird thing with this of like, up until, and I was following coverage of it, but really until like we got our hands on the demo, and even honestly when the game came out, we didn't even know up until like the month the Scramble released in February of like, okay, so is there co-op in this? Like, we just didn't know. It was just like okay.
Coverage has been really weird, yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate like them not kind of like shoving it all down our throats and like leaving a little bit like to like a little bit of that mystery for it, which is nice. But yeah, like we didn't know like, okay, how does story mode work? Can we go back? Is there a free mode? Like, is this just a plain narrative? And I think it's interesting how, in terms of like menus and stuff, it almost from the outset looks like a super linear trimmed down Warriors game in terms of its like setup. But like we've said, how it's Warriors almost in like inside DNA alone, but like on the outside, it really doesn't kind of like match that at all. But like once you kind of get into the systems of like, okay, when you're in the RV, you can go back to the other jails, you can check stuff out, you can get your requests. Like you get to experience all of that while you're playing it, and then it just kind of like it defeats the point of ever having to leave the game and go back to the main menu, which is very rare for a Megaforce game.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if you play to the end of the story and you go back into that save, like, before fighting the boss, there's a lot of stuff to do, and you can go almost anywhere. With Sophia's store, you can access, any items that you might need. If you want to get food for cooking, she has those appear in there, too. So, yeah, I mean, you can do so much in it. And when you're actually, like, going through it, like you said, like, it's not like a Warriors game, which I consider, like, a very menu-driven experience. You go to the menu, then you go to this menu, and then you jump into the battle. 15 minutes later, you go back out to the menu and find, like, the next battle. Like, it has that. It just has worlds that you roam around in and are kind of picking up requests and doing things for that. I was surprised how much it is just like a Persona, like, 5 story game. It's just a bunch of story scenes and then a big explorable area with battles. And instead of going into a turn-based battle, you just go into a little Warriors battle, which appeals to me.
Yeah, it's so weird because if you've just played the demo, it's really funny. They give you that big battle in the beginning of Shibuya Scramble and whatnot. And once that's done, they throw you immediately into the, for lack of a better words, like the garbage dump area or like the sewers.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, like in terms of like how that level is laid out and its visuals, it almost kind of like sells it short. Because like if all you get is like Shibuya Square and the sewers, you're like, okay, so when I'm not in these big giant arenas, it's just going to be like a linear dungeon, like a palace or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
considering that takes place in the Wonderland area, which has some really cool visuals.
Yes, like the demo doesn't show off the platforming, and it doesn't show off the like how stealth works or like really how you can do chances and like the different benefits of it, because really that whole sewer area is a tutorial. You almost never go back to it unless you're trying to explore and stuff like that, which like it has its purpose.
Yeah, there's one request that sends you back to it, but that's it.
So like once you get out of there, because I had people who had checked out the demo and like, I don't know, the sewer level just kind of seemed very linear and boring, and then going through like the rest of Wonderland and like hearing all the different music and all the different like layouts and stuff, and like how it transitioned from different aspects of like running around, sneaking, fulfilling requests, getting key items, doing boss fights, doing mini boss fights, environmental like interactions, which were barely in the demo at all, are so much deeper than I would have thought. Like when I was playing through this and all the systems just melding and clicking together so well, I had that feeling. I was like, wow, this is like, and I know this is really lofty claims, but I genuinely feel this. This to me feels like when Platinum Games made Nier Automata. Like when you played Nier Automata, you're like, wow, this is so up their wheelhouse, but at the same time outside of their comfort zone, and it clicks just right because everything is just coming together, and all these systems complement each other so nicely that this is legitimately what I feel is like Omega Force Nier Automata, in the sense of it is taking everything they're good at, showing you all of these things you never thought they could be good at, and just giving you all these extra features you never would have even asked for, and somehow it all works without really becoming frustrating.
Yeah, they really went above and beyond anything that they've even tried to do before. Just the amount of extra like movement options built into it, like with the contextual actions, sneaking attacks, all-out attacks, all these things, the way that they've implemented. Like, they always do a great job of implementing whatever series is being mixed with them in some kind of clever way. With Hyrule Warriors, they had the boss fights with, like, using items on it. In Fire Emblem Warriors, you had, the support system and pairing up mechanics, as well as improved ordering systems as well. And they've done the same thing here. But they've improved the gameplay to such a degree, it's crazy. Like, it doesn't feel like you're just doing, some of the characters only have like 4 standard attacks, which means that they have 4 like heavy attack options. But there's so much more to them, with like this attack makes your persona do this, or this attack puts you into this state. Like Yusuke especially is a character, which I didn't even realize how much depth there was to his gameplay until I just sat down and experimented with him, and the script that I thought would be like 500 words just bloated to 4 times that, with how much he can do. Stuff that I didn't even like think about how much extra was there. Like, this attack can cause this status effect, or this attack can let him basically just endlessly extend his combos if you want. And then there's applying that in the actual battles, which just feels so satisfying to pull off. Like, I keep on comparing it to, like, battle-wise, it's almost like a Kingdom Hearts where, you know, you have basic actions, but those link into each other in such interesting ways. Also, there's a lot of jumping away and using healing items midair, or healing commands midair.
Yeah, and actually you bring up a really great point, and also kind of going back to how the demo somehow does a great and a terrible job at selling the game at the same point of, like, it does a great job in terms of selling you into wanting to buy the game, and then once you play the game, you're like, oh my god, how did you not include this? And well, like, the demo doesn't even let you try what other characters are like, let alone what inner battle switching is like, and the way the baton and the, like, passing on and the one more attack systems all layer on top of each other, especially when you're in boss fights, it is such a nice rhythm. And something that people don't really understand, or if you've only primarily played stuff like Warriors Orochi or Dynasty Warriors or Samurai Warriors, is those games have massive, massive, massive bloated rosters of, like, characters that, like, are very special and mean a lot to people, but there is, like, those things that, like, compare a roster like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 to something like, let's say, the original Persona 4 Arena. When you trim down and only have, like, a small cast of playable characters, that gives the developer that time to, like, really make them special, make them feel like their own. And I have never, and even going to, like, Hyrule Warriors used to be my, oh wow, this is a pretty small roster for a Warriors game, but everyone felt so great, even, like, the clones and whatnot. But, like, Scramble totally steals the cake of everyone is so unique, and, like, not only just, like, the way that they play their combos, like, whether, like, some characters are deeper than others, but just in, like, their momentum and their movement, like, the fact that, like, when I'm playing as Haru, she's so heavy, but when you actually get her, like, moving in a good groove, she can just destroy so much damage in these big horde battles, comparing it to, like, Morgana, who just feels like you're playing a cartoon character. Like, Morgana feels like she is the weight of, like, a 5-pound letter or whatever. And it's really great because we had a question, I think, like a week or two ago, of someone had just primarily played Hyrule Warriors. And one of the complaints, and honestly valid in that game, is when you're running around in that game, every character feels the same when they're running around. They have the same weight, they have the same speed, they feel like they're just kind of all gliding across the same speed, and the world's moving.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're Medley with her wings out, or if you're, you know, Link actually putting boots on the ground, it just feels the same.
Yeah.
You know, weightless glide.
Yeah, but
that's a fair complaint in many Warriors games, actually.
Yes, exactly. And the fact that, like, this one does the, like, difference of, like, everyone feels different, everyone's speeds feel different, and maybe they actually are all running the same, but just in the way that the animation, like, plays out and it shows off them all, like, you genuinely feel like you are being that Phantom Thief. Like, there's never a moment when I'm playing as Ryuji, I'm like, would have been cooler if he did this, and just, like, little dumb things of, like, when I was describing to, friend of the podcast, John, otherwise known as Gnarly, I had to tell him the first thing I showed him in Scramble. I went, dude, Ryuji has a Doom-level satisfying shotgun. Like, when you're in a giant battle and they're, like, weak to, like, firearms, that charge shot, when he just does, like, the scatter across, like, everyone, I'm like, that is one of the most satisfying things ever. And I would have never thought that a game made by Tecmo Koei for Persona would have satisfying firearms.
Yeah, Ryuji in general is just all kinds of satisfying. Like, when you're pulling off, like, his charge C2 and he just batters the enemy, it's like you can feel, like, the crack and just how much damage it instantly delivers. Versus, like you have a character like Haru, who is, I think Haru is more about positioning than, you know, really, you know, hammering out combos really fast. Because if you get her in the right spot and then use one of her abilities, she's, like, unstoppable. She just mows through enemies. But you don't have to, like... Versus, like, someone like Yusuke, who really benefits from reading the enemy's attacks. Like, every character, even the playstyle down to movement, they are so diverse. Like, having just played around with each one for writing each of these guides, I found so much more than I imagined that there would be to every single character.
Like, I'm honestly jealous that you've been doing those guides, because, like, I feel like I could legitimately do a, like, 30 to 60-minute podcast on just each, like, one character alone, going through all their stuff for it. Because it's really funny, like, on the surface, when you're playing the demo, it really feels like Joker is just going to be like, okay, he can use multiple personas, he's probably just going to be the best character in the game, and I'm going to use the other characters just because, like, oh, I want to do this special or whatever. Whereas, like, I found myself, because when you're doing a playthrough through the whole game, you have to have Joker with you in your party. Like, I used Joker during boss fights and stuff, but I primarily played as, like, when I was done getting trophies and leveling up everyone's master axe. Like, I always was going back to Ryuji, I was always going back to Yusuke, and that third slot, it was like my fun slot of, like, I loved playing as everyone. I was like, oh my god, I don't know who I want to do, and thank god the EXP share is fair, but not Pokemon levels of EXP share fair. Of, like, it makes you feel like going back and giving someone who's like a 4 to 5 level difference, you can feel it, but those boss fights, if you're playing correctly, if you're dodging at the right time, if you're using the right elemental weaknesses and whatnot, it still feels challenging and rewarding, which is so hard to nail, because especially in these other warrior games where you have to level up people's skills, people's weapons, and like meld all these different options. Like, those weapon systems are fun, and especially in everyone's skill trees, especially like the skill trees in Hyrule Warriors, I super loved and whatnot. But when you be going through all these different characters, like once there was like over like 20 or whatever, it can get a little bit exhausting for most people out there. And the fact that all of these characters, like all the Phantom Thieves, feel so streamlined, and you can just throw them into whatever battle, for the most part, give or take boss fights, and still have fun and not feel like you're getting your ass kicked no matter what difficulty you were on. Because my whole first playthrough was normal. What did you start out with?
I did normal, and I would occasionally bump it up to hard. Yeah.
So, like, I felt the difficulty was very, very, like, fair, and, like, I died a couple times, but I never felt like it was like, okay, this boss is very, like, unbalanced, and I need to bash my head into the wall.
Yeah, from the demo, I felt like normal was going to be a little bit too easy. Like, that Fire Emblem Warriors normal was really easy. Maybe just from my coming off of Hyrule Warriors, but I felt like Hyrule Warriors normal was harder than that. So I thought, like, is that trend going to continue here? So I would occasionally bump it up to hard, but eventually I would, like, bring it back down to normal, because hard can really, really, like, kill you real fast. Like, there is present danger in these battles. Like, sometimes you just got to retreat and get your health back, because you just can't keep on going, or you don't want to eat through all of your supplies.
Well, and I don't know how you felt, but I felt like
difficulty,
boss fights were very, like, okay, here's now where you test your, like, metal, in terms of, like, when you're going around and, like, running through palaces, like, collecting items and whatnot, you can kind of, like, get in that groove of, even though, like, okay, you go up to a shadow, that's your fight, finish that fight, go on to the next thing, like, that has a good pace. It doesn't feel like you're going and starting a random, like, turn-based battle, even though it is, like, get a battle, you're sectioned off, clear everyone out before you can leave that section. It still goes at, like, such a nice, smooth pace. It doesn't feel like, okay, I'm stuck in this fight and I have to do something. Even though, yes, there's an escape option as, like, a meaning of getting out of there. I literally escaped once just to see what it was really like, and then I, like, never really did it again, because I felt battles were so fun and satisfying. It was like, well...
Yeah, I never really got tired of the battles. I just wanted to keep on going for them. And I really enjoy how, if there's, like, 3 shadows in a little small area, if you get one, or you initiate battle with one, then after that battle, they're all cleared out. So
yes,
you
which
just
is
have that one battle,
which
in that
is
one
really,
area.
really, really nice. I actually don't know. Do you know if there are multiple shadows when you pull a mask off? Does that make more enemies appear? Because I never could really tell if that added more or just it was the same amount every time.
So the battles are kind of like, they're already preset for what's going to appear. Mm-hmm. So if you have, like, a boss fight with a mini boss and there's 3 enemies there, if you attack any one of them, it's the same fight every time. So it's just, they're all linked to that one encounter.
Also, kind of going back into, like, characters and whatnot, who did you ever have, like, a default, like, okay, here's my, like, my favorite, like, 4, let you play through most of the game, whether it be your first playthrough or New Game Plus?
I definitely had favorites develop, but I tried to constantly switch it up, because I was trying to learn each of the characters, and kind of, you also want to think about, like, how these characters benefit off each other. For example, like, An has a lot of moves that set enemies on fire, and that benefits both Makoto and Morgana's wind and nuclear attacks. So you kind of want to pair them together, or even just having them together while you're playing as Joker is good because they're just going to passively raise each other's damage. But eventually, Zenkichi was definitely a favorite of mine. I had a lot of badass moments where it was like I was out of supplies. It was just him fighting alone, but because of his life gain, I was able to just keep on going and going and going. Also, Sophia quickly became a favorite of mine once I realized everything she can do. She's just good to always have in a passive slot as well because she just keeps your troops going, especially with her, I think it's Rakunda, which lowers enemies' defenses, which just quickens up battles and it lets you eat through health bars really, really quickly too.
I don't know what it is, but like there is something about you're on a crazy hard boss, you've got maybe like half or less of its health, and there is one character left and you have no more revive items. Like that feeling of just like all three of your teammates are down and like every hit is like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I had that with so many of the bosses in the game, and it was so funny. Like, because there's nothing more soul crushing than when you have that moment of you think you can do it with just one character and you just miss it out, and you're like, oh god, the game never really gave me a chance. It just gave you that false sense of security. But like the amount of times where like you can get surprisingly far with just one character, I'm legitimately surprised that like just playing as one solo character isn't like some sort of like achievement on its own of like, hey, how far could you get in this game with just one character?
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. One of them was a thing that happened to me in the Okinawa jail, where there's a mini boss there, and it's just a black ooze fight, and there's a black ooze mini boss. So I had everyone on my team had died. I had no revive items, and I was down to just Ryuji. And I'm pretty sure I could be mixing up the personas, but that boss has a resistance to electric
yes, he does.
And physical. And so it was just me bashing like him with Ryuji and trying to my best to stay alive. And it took so long, but eventually I got through it. That's a really memorable experience. The other one was in risky mode. So I've been playing on the super duper hard difficulty that comes only in New Game Plus. And that would be impossible from level 1. Like, it's got to be a New Game Plus mode because you need everything that you have by the end of that game right off the bat of that. And in risky mode, the most dangerous time is the beginning of the game, where you are, specifically the tutorial, or sorry, the demo of this game, they just took the first hour, chopped it off, and gave that to people to play through. And the sewer section is so dangerous because you can only play as Joker. You can have other people in your party, but you can't switch to them. So if Joker goes down,
even in New Game Plus mode, it still limits you off there, huh?
Yeah. When you even like you do New Game like after beating the game or New Game Plus, that part you can only control Joker in. And so my first experience with risky mode was, they load up the big battle at the Scramble. I got like hit and then hit again and then game over. I was like, whoa, that's what this is gonna be, huh? Yeah, you in risky mode, like if you're using buffs and you're lowering enemies' attacks, you can take maybe like 4 hits, but yeah, it's usually around 2, or I haven't been one shot that much. It's usually 2, and it can come surprisingly quickly. Like a group revive, that like final heal move that heals everyone to full and also revives everyone is super useful. And so I want to get into risky mode a little bit later because it does a whole lot more. It's not just a more difficult mode. It also has a completely different economy of raising your character's power.
So, without kind of getting more into risky, I do have a weird question because this actually came up as a nice new addition in Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which is really weird that it was tied to New Game Plus only. In New Game Plus, are you able to actually take Joker out of your party as a mandatory person, or does he still have to be in your party?
No, he has to be in the party.
Okay, so like Tokyo Mirage Sessions, for whatever reason, one of these Switch exclusive features is tied to New Game Plus, and and it lets you take out the main party member, who is basically just the Joker of that game, and it's so fun because like when you get that extra slot of being able to play as any forward you want, that opens up so much freedom. I would not be surprised if they patched that in then, because like that's such a fun feature to add in. I would have sworn that they would have done that for it, but it's not that surprising, and it's not like it like limits the game or makes it any less fun. It's just one of those like dumb like, hey, I've sunk 100+ hours into this game. I want to now give myself a new form of playing it.
Yeah, it disappoints me because I really don't like when I'm locked to using that one character. Like I really crave variety when I'm playing, like especially a Warriors game where I want to keep switching between characters, and just always having that one guy on my team that I can't take out for, very little reason disappoints me. Like in Tokyo Mirage Sessions, it makes more sense because that character, like Joker, can have any weakness and any resistance, but that character is always using the same. I want to call it persona. Whatever it is, Performa.
It's Performa, yeah.
Yeah. And so he has the same weaknesses. He has a set weakness, and so he's not always like an even choice in all the battles. So
well,
I'm glad to hear that feature's in there.
technically, just because for the one guy out there who will be mad and try to correct you, you can change the Carnage, which does technically change your weaknesses and resistance to it. But yes, the
oh, you mean like through the class change?
Yes,
thing?
yeah, that is still there as like a thing for it. But yeah, that does that bring it up. But just in case that one guy out there was going to write that comment,
there's always that one guy. Yeah.
I'm usually that one guy. So I have to ask though, for you, how long did the story mode take for you? Because I know, like, if you rush through it, I think the quickest I've seen someone beat it was like 30 to 35 hours. Me, it took on normal about 50 hours to beat the whole game.
Yeah, I think we had similar experiences. Like, I feel like there was a lot of people saying like, oh, it's only 20 hours or it's only 30 hours. And to me, like, the story alone took about that much time to present itself. Like, there are huge chunks of story where it's just an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, usually transitioning between cities, where, it's just story and story and story. Like, I'd say the story alone is, like, 20 hours. And
oh my god, yeah, going from the third city to the fourth city, where you're, like, meeting Zenkichi's daughter and stuff, it was just one of those moments of just, like, I think, like, this has been, like, an hour of not playing, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm bored. It was just one of those things of, like, it's those moments, like, when it's going very story heavy, where you're like, this is where you can tell the Persona team really, like, worked with them and, like, made this feel like an actual story, because it's not like your typical Persona spin-off story presentation. Actually, this would have been a smart question to ask you. Do you have any experience with any of the Persona 4 or previous Persona 5 spin-offs?
Yes. I like the Persona 4 Arena games, and I really like the dancing games.
That is a correct answer. We're big dancing stands in this house. But yeah, Persona 4 Arena, well, I think is actually the bad sense of how to presentate it. Like Persona 4 Arena, especially, I think Ultimax does a bit of a better job of having these very interesting nuggets of a story, and unfortunately just stretching it out like a piece of taffy so long and so boring that by the time you get to the end you're like, oh my god, why was Sho doing this? But like the dancing ones are a lot more kind of concise and a lot less like fluff in there because of like how it's like just told as a story, and the way they use that visual novel I think worked a lot better. But like
I was actually really disappointed when I heard the P3 and P5 dancing games would not really have much of a story.
Yeah, did you play any either P3 or 5 dancing?
Yeah, I got them both, and I kind of played some songs out of each one, but kind of went on to other stuff there because I didn't have like a story to latch on to.
Yeah, like
they're going to happen next.
They're a fun platinum to go for, especially like I have platinumed Persona 4 dancing so much that if there was a category of speed running to platinum that game, I'm very confident in my abilities to. Of like, I've been the guy like, hey, do you want me to platinum this for you? Because I've run out of things to platinum. Like I've done JP Vita, JP PS4, North American PS4, and I think I've done at least like 5 other friends of just like, give me your Vita, like give me like 2 hours and I'll platinum this game for you, because it's like hey, skip all of the story and I'm just playing dancing songs and it goes by really really fast, which I enjoy a lot because I'm a big music nerd. But yeah, the thing that sucked about those ones in terms of story, they literally start, if you remember, Persona 3 and 5 dancing literally start, everyone's in the Velvet Room. Hey, we're all dreaming. When we wake up, we'll not remember any of this. It was like, okay,
yeah,
I appreciate your candor, but at the same time, I want you to know that I care 0% about your writing now.
Yeah.
So thankfully, like, I don't know, I would love for, and I know because of the Japanese industry that this will probably never happen, at least for many, many years. I want as much behind-the-scenes information about this game as humanly possible. Because you can definitely tell how this game took 3.5 years of dev time to make, because it is really beefy. It is easily the longest Persona spin-off game. It has the
Yeah, by
most
far.
it has the most production value out of almost any Koei Tecmo game in the last like 10 years. The amount of new art assets, because like most of these games, like usually like okay, like a good example, especially with Omega Force like adaptations, is did you ever play Arsland?
Arslan. Yeah, I played. Yeah, I played it.
So Arslan is like one of
I was
those.
thinking about those cutscenes.
Yeah,
making me
yeah,
laugh.
like those cutscenes are like, hey, here's a PNG of this clip.
And I'm just have a little toothpick attached to it, and I'm bobbing it up and down.
Oh my god, it's like, think about it. These games cost the same. Both of those games cost the same amount of money. From a presentation standpoint, it was just mind-boggling to me. So, like, to see that, okay, everything is voiced. There is tons of new music. The rearranged music is fantastically done. And in a really, really rare mix, outside of the main theme, all of the rearranged and new music is actually done primarily with Koei Tecmo's sound team, which is really rare because usually it's Shoji Meguro does all of the like arrangements and remixes. And the fact that like he doesn't touch almost any of this game's major sounds, and I don't know about you, the soundtrack is like the best Warriors soundtrack or even Persona soundtrack I've heard in like 10 years.
They always knock it out of the park with the sound. Like Hyrule Warriors had a lot of great rearrangements. Fire Emblem Warriors had its own like a lot of great original music. I would use that in a lot of my videos just because it was so like beautiful, calming music that they had, and then like the action tracks are really good too.
Mm-hmm.
So I was expecting that going in, except doing that to Persona music, which is just fantastic. So
I've been
listening to that track a lot since while I'm doing the writing, I'm listening to it constantly. It's just great.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I think I was aware that they were going to do really good battle songs, but because of how much time you spend in those towns and stuff, and especially sneaking around, even those quieter songs I really appreciate a lot more than I thought I would.
Oh yeah, yeah.
By the way, if you guys couldn't tell by this almost 2-hour long episode, there's going to be a lot of filleting of this game. This game has very, very few problems for me personally.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't even gotten that much into it.
Yeah, like for you though, does anything like did you have anything when you were really playing into it of like that kind of stood out for you as like, okay, I would have preferred this a little bit differently, or things that might have irked you? Because I have a very small list of complaints.
I guess I would. Number one, I wish I had commands for my allies to be like, don't burn through your SP, just do standard attacks or something like that. Because sometimes I need to rely on them to do a specific move. Like, oh, Sophia used up all of her SP healing after 2 battles into this jail. Like, shit, what do I do?
Yeah, it is a little odd because
restoring SP is not cheap.
Because they've had like AI commands or like AI like scripts of like, hey, be a little more defensive or be a little more like restrictive and stuff.
Yeah, I played original. Was it P3 FES? Did that let you command?
No, only Persona 3. Only Persona 3 was
that
portable that let you do that. It started with Persona 4.
Yeah, I played my first Persona game was P3 FES and or is it FES?
It's either way.
But yeah, I got used to those commands, and playing Persona 4, I was like, hey, I can tell everyone exactly what to do. That's great. But still, they had the option there, so I kind of would just assume that that'd be in there, but the fact that it's not is kind of disappointing. I hope that like comes in an update, because I mean, I don't know how difficult that would be to implement now, but
well, thank God Koei Tecmo is developing this and not Atlas, because I tweeted about this when the first patch came out. I think 2 weeks ago for like version 1.01. I patched it out because like people don't really realize this. With that patch, that's the first time a Persona game has ever been patched on PlayStation. Besides, for PlayStation 4. Arena got patched a bunch and stuff. But the funny thing with it is, like, Dancing, Royal, and Persona 5, like, Standard, never got any patches. Even though they had DLC and a whole bunch of stuff like that. Those games were all 100% done. Any error, whatever, too bad, so sad. We're never going to touch this game's code again. But thankfully, the nice thing is with like Koei Tecmo, and especially we'll get into this later, I really want to talk to you about potential DLC stuff for this. Is like, I'm sure that they're going to update this clock, because like they have such a good history of not only fixing things, but implementing little things like, hey, we're going to raise the level cap, or we're going to make these changes. And there are so many little things I think they could do for free, and actually, once we get past complaints a little bit, I want to talk to you about like just little things that like what almost would be like a complaint is like, oh, there's only 4 master acts. It's like I loved that there was only 4 master acts, but it would be so but it would be so easy to be like, hey, guess what? Everyone gets 1 new master act in this update we just did.
Yeah, that would really complicate things too, because those add a whole lot of depth to it. But like they those master arts they come out so quickly. Like I would like get all 4 on Joker, and it's like, oh, is there more that's gonna unlock later? And the answer is there isn't. So like it was by like the 3rd city that I had every one available's master arts already done. I didn't like especially go back for a lot of grinding or anything. It just kind of happened naturally. So I was quite shocked by that. Going back to issues that I had with the game, there was one other thing, and that's that specifically playing as Joker. When you have all of his master arts, he has 3 additional moves that each persona can do, just kind of built into his normal attack string. Have you experimented with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not, as far as I can tell, it's not listed anywhere in the game what each persona is going to do. You just have to play with it and find out what it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of experimentation, and unless I'm somehow being a big dumb gaijin about this, I don't think there's any sort of command list menu for everyone, right?
Yeah, I've looked everywhere for it. It's not. So I actually, one of the first things I did after beating the game was I wrote down what every single persona did. Like, I unlocked Lucifer.
I feel much better because I have a notepad on my phone that is the exact same thing. I was worried I was the only one who did that.
Yeah, and some of these are important. Like Sarasvati has Medea. There's a Medea. Mm-hmm. Medela. What's the second level heal?
Medea.
Medea. Yeah, she has Medea.
We can call it Medea. That's a good new Medea, canon change. Tyler Perry.
I don't know how
Tyler Perry presents Medea.
Sarasvati Medea. So yeah, that's just a free heal to your party. I mean, it's a weak free heal, but you know, when you're trying to conserve on SP, that's really important, and it'd be good to know that's what she does.
Which, by the way, we can't stress this enough, because, again, doesn't really get into it in the demo. Oh my god. Please, I don't care how you play this game, we're going to get into talking about bans. Go to the one that increases everyone's SP, just continue to max that out as soon as you possibly can, because everyone in this game burns through SP like it's their fucking lifeblood.
Oh, yeah. Also, I think resistances is really important there.
Yes.
Because, like, when you're not having to revive people constantly, like, you can just keep on going and going. That's really important, too. Other things in that banned menu, I'd say raise counter. Get counter as soon as you can, because that's so useful. Because not only does it hurt the enemy, it knocks them out of their action. Because
you get counter after the second town, right?
Yeah, something around that time.
Like when I got that and I saw the little like preview menu for it, I literally just put my hands on the controller down and I went, "Oh my god, this game just got witch time," and it made the battle so much more fun. Which is like so crazy to think that like there's always been like dodge attacks and stuff, but like to my knowledge, like I can't think of another Warriors game off the top of my head that like has it like it is in Scramble, and it is so satisfying to keep updating it and like upgrading for all the added benefits of like you're not just dodging and you're not just dodging to get no damage, you're dodging to get that free extra hit that usually weakens them and might lead you to another combo.
Exactly. That also, just to me, the most important thing is like the slight stun that it has.
Yes.
Like when you have a rematch fight with the Shibuya boss, in the later part of that fight, they have this big kind of rolling attack. It looks a lot like one of Morgana's attacks, where they just roll straight at you. It's a very like constant speed. So if you dodge out of the way of that and then hit the boss with that counterattack, which hits them no matter where they're at, it stops them from doing that attack. It puts them back into like a vulnerable mode where you can continue the fight. So you get this kind of mastery over the fights like this, and this can happen in any fight. And like I'm really, I don't know, hesitant to make this comparison, but the feeling that you have where you know the fight, you know what the boss can do, and you can punish everything that they do because you know the appropriate like place to stand or time to dodge. It kind of reminds me of a Souls game.
Oh no, 100%. Like this, like not. I didn't actually think of it more of a Souls thing. Is like I felt like this is like wow, this is their most action game feeling stuff they've done, which is just
Yeah.
it's about timing. Like, timing matters so much for this, especially because a lot of the bosses, like, you can tell immediately when you're fighting a boss, not just because the giant health bar at the very top of the screen, but because every boss is huge. Every boss has these giant spanning attacks that are very, most of the time, like, telegraphed to you, but especially at the end of the town, like, at the end of every jail, those bosses, when they're going into their later phases, their desperation moves happen really fast, and if you don't know their cues, you will just get oofed immediately.
Yeah, actually, if I were comparing it to Souls games, it'd be more like a Bloodborne because there is no block. That surprised me a little bit. Like, there's only dodge, and there's only dodging at the right time in order to avoid damage in this game. And it's not just like dodging's on the ground. Some attacks are hitting the area around the boss, and you have to jump up and maintain your jump by like attacking at them or something in order to avoid the damage. Some of those like lock keeper fights, they have attacks where, like, you can be up close hitting them the whole time, but when they're doing, this kind of rev up, you got to jump into the air. Or if they're doing this rev up, you got to start dodging to the side or dodging backwards. There's just, like, you really get to learn and master each fight. It's fantastic. It's, like I say, it's just way beyond anything they've ever even tried before. And I'm not sure... I wish more people understood that.
Shane, you and I are really bad at criticizing this game. All of our criticisms lead to compliments. One of my little weird ones, this is kind of a nitpick because they don't really take up that much time in terms of the gameplay. I was a little bit disappointed in terms of when you kind of get into the feel of it for, okay, when you go to a new town, those investigative moments and the social elements definitely do suffer from rinse and repeat, which is like, okay... On one hand, yeah, I'm talking to the same, like, 4 to 5 people with stuff above their head to build up a meter, and then I'm going into the jails. But those, once you kind of know what you're getting into, like, I'm complaining because it's, like, it's rinse and repeated. But then, once I'm in the jails, they are so fun, I forget all about the, like, kind of mundane 5-minute segment it took to get to the jail.
See... I'm gonna counter that though, and I'm gonna also be bad at criticizing because at first I really did not like that, but then when the Okinawa section hit,
oh my god! When that section hit,
it's such a twist.
It's such a good twist. I mean, the best part is like when I go to Okinawa, which is like the halfway, like you're like on the 4th like level of it. You've just done like 3 towns that were very similar. When you get to Okinawa, I thought it was like, oh, this isn't going to be a level. I thought this was going to be here's our beach moment, and then we'll go to the next town, and then it'll be the same. And like that, like that twist from it, because like you were expecting it to just be the same as it's been the last 3 towns, and like even though it had showed off like the big turning point at night, without getting into spoilers of like what happens in Okinawa, it was like, oh my god, like this, I was not expecting what that, like, leading up to that jail at all. And even though it was very linear, I thought that that jail in particular had such a good pace, and oh my god, like I can go into like how all the jails, I really like their tone and how they feel all very unique and different, but man, do they all nail the atmosphere. Like, their atmospheres are so different, but just like the music, the way everyone reacts to it, and like the characters, just like they immediately, when you were in those jails, like they feel like real places.
Yeah, I almost wonder, like, were they trying to lull you into like the sense of like, I get it. It's like, it's kind of chapter, and these chapters are very similar.
Oh yeah.
And then suddenly, like, I got to that point, I was like, I have no idea where this game is going. And it reminds me, I think that the Persona 5 version of this was way stronger, just to be clear, story-wise, just for the events that happen. But it reminds me of the chapter where everything goes down with Akechi in Persona 5.
And it's also weird because I feel like they were almost like playing with their expectations in the beginning, because I was really worried after the first 2 jails of, oh my god, are all the jails just going to be copying the main character's involvement from Persona 5? Because if you remember, Jail 1, Anne was like, Anne had a moment at the end with that boss similar to Kamoshida. Jail 2, Yusuke had a moment similar to the palace, and I was like, oh my god, are we just gonna like go through every like beat of Persona 5? Because like one of the things I actually really like about the characters, and the biggest like thing I have to say about the story overall, is like this game works so well as a sequel because you can tell, and whether it be the gameplay or the story, that these characters, you can tell that they have been the Phantom Thieves, and they immediately have that team dynamic fucking down. Like,
yeah, I think that's why they start you with all of the Phantom Thieves.
My
and
God,
Sophia,
yes.
just go. You have 8 characters.
Because it would have been so easy to just be like, hey, you have 4 people. It's Joker, Ryuji, Morgana.
We're splitting up the teams, and you're controlling this one.
But yeah, like keeping everyone together.
It's not staggered at all.
Yeah, keeping everyone together is like it's a fan pleaser, because guess what? Now you don't have those people who are like, hey, Haru's my favorite character. Why do I get like 30 minutes of her in the whole fucking game?
Yeah.
Like you get to like experience as much or as little of these characters as you want, and especially even though you can't do this when you're in the social aspect of life, just the small fact that you can run around as anyone outside of battle in the jails is such a small, nice touch that like they could have just done it like most RPGs. Most RPGs, like when you're not playing as the main character in battle, as soon as you're out of battle, you're right back to playing as Joker.
Yeah, and that's like a small thing that like maybe you don't realize how important it is to you in the long run. Like, I'm just jumping around as Makoto, and I'm seeing how Makoto climbs up on this stuff, and you know, and then you go into the battle and you're already in control of that character, and like, yeah, I'm just playing as Makoto. And I mean, it seems like so obvious, but when you get that opportunity and you get to play as your favorite character and kind of inhabit them, it really is a great feeling. One thing I wanted to see your thoughts on was, we were talking about repeated setups, and that is kind of like kind of messed around in with the story around that midsection. What about going to the 3 towers every time and getting the 3 objects every time? What'd you think about that?
So that one I wanted to complain about more, but even though the setup was definitely like, okay, go to the tower, repeat, go to the tower, repeat, the platforming elements and the environmental puzzles were always so fun and unique, I never really minded it, which the fact that I'm saying that Omega Force made platforming fun, I feel like I've just spoken blasphemy, but it's true. Like, the characters are never like so loose that they feel like you're not going to the right place where they are, and I feel like no matter what point, whether you be on the ground or jumping in the air, that if there is a point you can dash towards, you just press circle and you dash towards it, it makes it like so much more forgiving. Like, it's tight, but like the fact that like those hop 2 points you can just do with the press of a button, it makes everything just go like so snappy, like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. One little tangent thing I want to get to. So I've lived in Japan for about 4 years now, but back when I was a student, I was in a really small town, and I took a trip with some of my friends over to Sendai. And so that's like my favorite place in Japan. I love Sendai, and that area in front of the station is so iconic for me. And so seeing that in the trailer, which revealed all the other cities, it excited me so much. And then when I got into this game and was playing around that area, and I just get to free reign, run around and jump around that was a really special thing to me. But I think that area, Sendai, really demonstrates like how much extra movement that you can have, just because the area in front of Sendai Station, it's kind of a 2-layered thing with the roads on the bottom, with some walking and stores down there, and then they have this upper level walkway that's really, really expansive, and that you just can explore almost all of it. Like, I could go there, and I was like, oh, I remember that this store was over here in Sendai, and they have like a different named version of that. Like, my wife has also been to Sendai with me before, and we were just walking around the area and looking at all the stores and laughing at how they changed, like, Big Echo karaoke to Big Echo karaoke like that.
I was very taken aback, though, by the fact that they at least still... I don't know whether this was a paid thing or that they paid to have it in there. I don't know why having HMV was so funny to me. Like, when I saw that Japanese HMV logo... I got such a weird, because I know what, like, most people, especially in America, like, HMV isn't a thing. It's primarily, I don't, like, how big is actually HMVs over there? Because it's still pretty big over in Europe and stuff, but I have no idea how big its retail presence is in Asia.
I recognized the logo, but that's all I could say about it. Like, this looks familiar. What is this? Is it a take on something?
So, literally, if people don't know, HMV is, like... They are known for movies, like DVDs and Blu-rays, and music. That's like their big thing for it. And what's so funny is I posted a clip of this on Twitter as well, because whenever I think of HMV, I immediately think of Do you know? Have you ever heard of Carl Pilkington?
Carl Pilkington. Oh, that sounds familiar. Is that the
The
Ricky
Yeah, the
Gervais
bald guy Ricky Gervais had travel around the
Uh-huh.
world and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, Carl
During
Pilkington,
one
yeah.
of their adverts, they had to pitch like back in the day, they would do retail specific adverts of being like, "Hey, buy my book on Amazon." Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
One of their things was, and this was it makes it even better that it was like 10 years ago. It was like, "All right, we need you to make an advert for HMV.com," and halfway through the advert, he just has this really perplexed look on his face. And he's like, I thought HMV had closed. It was like, that's the whole best part. I was like, they're not that big. And the fact that, like, it's 2020 and I'm seeing an HMV ad in the middle of Persona 5 Scramble, I'm like, what a weird fucking world we live in.
Yeah, I was looking at that and like I couldn't place it. I thought it was until you tell me about like the records. I thought it was like washing machines.
No, yeah, it's weird because actually their logo...
It's got that clean look to it.
Well,
Yeah.
their logo in Asia is different because, hold on, I need to pull this up. It's like there's a dog and a record player, and I'm trying to remember if Japan has just the dog or the record player. And now it's really fucking with me. So here we go. Yeah, in Japan it's just the record player. So it's a big pink circle with a record player, and in Europe...
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
And in Europe, it's a dog and a record player. I don't know why they felt the dog was no longer necessary. But yeah, they're like they're just these big stores for physical media. And as someone who lives in America, who we don't have a lot of those, I am very jealous of. No, that's really cool though, and one of the things that I wish I could relate to more because, like, while this game actually nails, I think, the road trip and summer vacation vibe really well with going to all the different like hotspots and touristy locations in Japan, it's really cool to hear that like a place that like you resonate with from being there personally, you can see in the game. And I have to say, were you like worried at all when you saw how kind of not small, but how segmented the social elements were? Because for the most part, you're going to get like 2 or 3 areas when you're doing the social elements. Because like when that happened, I was like, oh, okay, it feels like Persona 5, but it's a lot smaller in terms of places you can go to and things you can do. But then when you're actually in the jails, they're way more expanded out.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at how it's really just story scene. Like there's not like that slice of life. There's not like a lot of hanging out with your friends. There's some of those scenes,
and they're very optional. They're like surprisingly optional.
They're super optional, completely skippable, and like I think you just get a little bit of band experience for actually doing them. But yeah, I was more on board for just like seeing where the story was go because it hooked me, especially after that midpoint. You know, I was also getting worried around the Sapporo section. And it hooked me after that. But yeah, there's really not that much team building because they're already. I figured it was because they're already established and they have these established relationships. Also, maybe they don't want to cross whatever your preferred shippings are, so they went a little bit generic on that, perhaps.
I don't know. Actually, I felt like they had moments of like characters spending more time with others. Like I definitely felt like there's a lot of Futaba hanging out with Yusuke. There's a lot of An hanging out with Ryuji, and like
I recognize the on Ryuji one.
So like there's little things like that, but yeah, you can tell they're never gonna take a hard stance of who's the canon love interest. I will say though, man, I'm not even like a Makoto Joker like Stan or whatever for like that shipping thing for it, but I don't know why, but I thought the Okinawa scene between the two of them was just like too hilariously cute. But yeah, like I guess kind of going into the story with it of I was so surprised like that it wasn't just your like, it's funny, like, the mood never feels really dark and serious. Like, it's definitely like, hey, we have a mission. Like, we're kind of, like, you always know what your goal is, like, when you're going, like, town to town. But I like how it never kind of felt like, okay, we're not really going to get as dark and as serious, even when you find, like, the jail keepers and stuff. Like, when you know who the big bad is, like, you have those moments of it. Like, a good example is when you're looking, like, take for example, just for like 2 starting people, take any scene with like Kamoshida and a student, and then compare it to like Alice stepping on like her assistant or whatever. Like they're very similar, but in the same sense of like they like the tone doesn't like feel like, oh man, this is really fucked up and dark. It was more just like, oh okay, she's like someone who like clearly has a problem.
Yeah. There was only one character out of I'd say most all of the main jail targets that was like their backstory was really really dark. The Osaka one you can probably guess. The other ones were pretty gentle. Yeah, they didn't go to as dark places by far. Like you just saying Kamoshida's name just makes me feel gross because the scenes were disgusting.
I was thinking about this with somebody of like and this is a really weird tangent for it, but I'd be curious what your opinion was. Do you like feel like Kamoshida is almost too dark for how the rest of the palaces and like their keepers go for P5? Those are those weird ones of like they start at a 10 and then jump you back to a 6.
Yeah. The next one is the art guy, right? Yeah, that's. I mean, that's not as disgusting as like the things he did. Yeah, I think that it sets a way darker tone, maybe just to let you know that they're not fucking around.
I will say though, and I will keep promoting this, even though I'm getting absolutely zero revenue kickback. If you want to see an even darker Kamoshida, the Persona 5 manga actually makes him way more realistic and way more scummy.
Yeah.
Like a really cool like little example is, you know, like after Shiho tries killing herself and everyone like Ryuji and Joker go up to Kamoshida and they're like, hey, what the fuck, we're gonna like call you out on this. And he just kind of gives an ambiguous, like, well, hey, guess what, dummies? I'm going to turn you into the PTA meeting, and we're going to expel you. When you kind of think about that, it's like, okay, outside of him being, like, the top dog at the school, what evidence does he have to expel them, you know? But in the manga, it goes into it, and it says, well, hey, guess what? I am going to say that you guys have been going around asking everyone questions, which is true. They've been asking everyone questions about people being bullied at school. So Kamoshida says, I'm going to tell everyone at the PTA meeting, you bullied Shiho into killing herself. And I was like, wow, that's such a small touch. But that like that makes him even more fucked up, but even more like realistic in the sense of like, okay, that would definitely get people
expelled. Very true to his character.
Yeah, and like little small things like that. But going back to Scramble, which we definitely need to do. I am amazed at how much I liked all the villains. Whether like you got a lot or a little bit of screen time with them, they were all so varied in so many different like little weird ways, and I loved all of their bosses. Like, their boss transformations were so fitting and so interesting or disgusting. Like,
oh, yeah.
The bosses just really stood out to me in a way that, like, I dug, honestly, even more than Persona 5. Like, how did you feel about the bosses?
I thought the boss fights were, like, really great story beats, but they weren't like as challenging as a lot of the other stuff. Like, I would find myself just getting bodied by like mid bosses. So each of the boss fights, I don't think I died a single time to any of them.
Boss 3, I don't know if I was just being a big dummy. I died so many times to boss 3.
I died a lot. Actually, I think I did die to boss 2. Boss 3 I had a super easy time with.
I actually thought my PlayStation had melted. There's a scene in boss 3 where your characters basically are going at a quarter of the speed. Like after, I think it's her halfway point when she goes into her second state.
Yeah, she kind of makes a blizzard and cuts out all the...
Yeah, so there's a giant red arrow that says, hey dummy, go to a furnace and melt everything. I don't know why my brain was not thinking of that at all, and so I was just like, Jesus, my game is just going so slow. Like, what is happening to my PS4 Pro? And then when that happened, I was like, oh, okay, it was just that for it. But yeah, I don't know what it was, but yeah, that boss just like... I think it's because my regular team was just everything she was resistant to. So, like, it was just a real tough one to, like, kind of get used to, because for that one, I think I had to do, like, Anne, Sophie... Joker, obviously, and oh god, I can't even think of who I did for like the other one. Probably like Morgana or something. Because like she was like resistant to like every like ice, thunder, and dark stuff.
Yeah, going back to like the first 3 chapters are somewhat predictable, and I had recognized by that time a pattern that whichever character in the Phantom Thieves is like really connected to the situation more than the others, bring them to the boss.
I don't know why I didn't think about that. Yeah. Oh,
them.
yeah. And the other one I had to have was Haru, because it was just one of those things of like, yeah, why would I not think of that? Like, no duh, they're going to like be like necessary for it.
Yeah. Haru especially, just her kit is perfect for taking that boss out, because she like disrupts your teammates a lot, and she can Fat Elsa can also just swallow them from time to time. But she doesn't pay a ton of attention to the character that you're controlling, which a lot of the bosses, you can tell they're targeting you more than the others, and sometimes their attention swerves away. And when their attention swerves away, Haru just can sit right behind her and just blast her with... Haru has extendable attacks in this game. That's kind of her gimmick. So you just go into her like Psy Tornado, and it's just doing weak point, weak point, weak point, weak point, weak point, and then the boss is stunned, and I just kind of would repeat that, and I got like maybe 2 of those all-out attacks against her. Just kind of ate through her health like that. I also was surprised by the sudden like slowdown effect, but I had that like the running around like a headless chicken for a little bit too. Like, what do I do? What's going on? And then eventually I looked at the mini-map.
Well, because like when you're in those boss fights, and hers is so interesting. Of unless I'm forgetting something, her boss fight is the only one that doesn't have. No, actually, no. The other bosses don't have any other like mini hordes. It's just pretty much just them fighting. It's the mini bosses that'll also have hordes along with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like those boss fights, just because they are such a ominous presence and they take up so much real estate on the screen, it's like it's like when you compare like how zoomed out the camera gets, it's pretty like hectic how crazy everything gets before even all the particle effects.
Yeah, I also learned like that the bosses will always have like 4 things in their boss room that you don't want to waste.
Oh my god,
actions.
yes. I thankfully, speaking of the one that will like eat your party members, I really appreciated, though, if you do fuck up and use the environmental contextual items, if you do weaken them enough, it will still activate like the thing to get your party members back, which is nice. Like, they did think of that.
Yeah, the second boss is really punishing for that, and I think that's why I died, because he like applies super armor to himself, and suddenly you can't get those like... If you can buff your speed, you can still get crits against him to kind of break through his guard. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like, you really lose the opportunity through, like, I think he becomes resistant to physical when he does that, which can make it hard to eat through his health. So that was why I struggled with that one most. But then once I got it, I did pretty well till the end there, with only mini bosses giving me trouble. Lockmasters I usually found harder than the actual boss themselves.
That's so funny. I'm so the opposite. I don't know why. Like, the bosses...
Really?
The bosses for me are where I felt like every fight, like, I just barely made it through.
In risky mode, which I'm on right now, I've done the first boss over again, and it feels like playing the boss from your first experience again, because it is an endurance run. Like, fighting the first boss was like, I think it was like a 20-minute affair on risky mode, and I could have gone out at any time, and I was running super low on resources, just like the first time I fought that boss again. It was a really great experience. So I'm really looking forward to doing some of the later ones, and I'm like dreading, but also really anticipating doing the super bosses for the requests after that as well.
Kind of taking a step back a little bit from the battling, but going still in the systems. I don't know how... This is not that much of a praise, but I will say this. Somehow, Persona 5 Scramble actually does a better job at using your Phantom Thief sense than the actual regular vanilla Persona 5, which I find hilarious. Of, like, just that little thing of, like, how, like, there's, like, little puzzle moments every now and then that you'll kind of need it. Like, actually... the big one for me was that first big puzzle in Wonderland where you have to follow the footsteps. That room doesn't give you a hint about footsteps. So for me, like playing it like with like half understanding Japanese, it was like pull the lever, fight, pull the lever, fight, pull the lever, fight. And I was like, what on earth am I missing? And all it was like, oh, okay, hey dummy, press L2. But like just the little things of like the hidden like warp 2 points and just like little extra things like that were just really nice touches, because like that movement speed like you were talking about, especially if you don't want to fight people, because like it's very easy just to sneak past and go past people. Like really there's no need to. The boss fights, the regular fights are so fast, but like the movement speed of the game is so fun and fluid. But at the same point, even if you don't want to have to like go through everything, I cannot praise this game enough as well. It has one of the most fast and generous checkpoints and fast travel systems, which I really, really appreciated.
Yeah, I didn't I didn't really. I almost felt like they gave you too many checkpoints. Like it didn't really make sense until I got to risky mode. I was like, oh, okay.
I don't know.
Now the game is hard enough to
enjoyed
justify
it the few
these close
times I
checkpoints.
messed around with requests in the sense of like there was never that moment of like okay, and now I have to start from the beginning. Go.
Yeah, you're not super far away from stuff.
Yeah, so it was just kind of nice to have for that. And yeah, when you bring up risky mode, that definitely makes a lot more sense of like everything mattering a whole lot more because I can't imagine how much more of an SP sponge everything is probably on risky mode.
Yeah. What did you think about like when you're going into the palace or whatever in Persona 5? Like you gotta manage your resources, and when you're out, you gotta make the call. Like, am I gonna leave early and try to tackle this another night? That's like kind of the only way to restore yourself. But in this game, you just leave the jail and go right back into the jail, which to me almost seems like a pointless inconvenience.
It's tough
You're
because
just punished with a load screen.
yeah, it's tough because you have there's not even the consequence of you miss another day. Like there's stuff happening. Like it's literally just kind of rinse repeat. I feel like they should at least have something of like. I don't even know if this would be like more or less fair. Of take out going back to the real world to revive everything. Like have it be when you're at a checkpoint, you can pay a lofty sum of money. Because I feel like after I got past Okinawa, I felt like I always had way more money than I ever needed. So like I feel like maybe make that a lot more like hey, it's 100,000 yen and we will give you all your SP back. So like still have it like kind of have a value as opposed to okay, why would I buy SP items unless it's a boss fight? Otherwise just go out to the real world, come right back cuz like I said there's a million checkpoints, so you're not really losing any progress, you're just having to wait through 2 load screens. Oh, really quick tangent I do want to bring up because I have seen this. The loads get worse on the Switch version. The loads are very long, and there is a lot of loading in between intersection areas. Like at longest on PS4 Pro, a load is 3 seconds for me. I don't know if there's much of a difference on standard, but like Switch,
it wasn't that bad for me.
Switch, there was multiple 30+ second load screens.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, which like then kind of cuts into the whole portability thing of like, hey, if I'm spending more time loading than playing, isn't that kind of contradictive to what I was doing this whole portable thing for?
Yeah. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah,
but luckily the game's good enough.
Yes, exactly. And there are definitely moments of like once you are like the biggest loads in the whole game are really when you're going into the jails. Like there are smaller load screens in between each section, but like it's those first initial loads because those areas, especially from certain cities, are very, very, very big.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other things. Oh yes, we talked about this a little bit. Thank God for the band system. I don't know if this was just their take on, hey, how can we kind of like give everyone a confidant skill without having to actually have social ranks, but like for me, I feel like the best comparison for people who haven't played the game, the band system is like the level up screen in Fallout. When it's like, hey, what do you want to put a point to? Of like, do you want to make this better? Do you want to make this better? And you can do everything. Like when I was playing through the game, I genuinely was like, okay, started first, I wanted everything to be at least level 1, and then I started kind of getting the things I wanted to get like higher and higher and higher. They range completely, like we talked about, having higher SP, higher HP, getting more money, getting cheaper items from the store, being able to hold more Persona points, or PP if you want to be a 5-year-old like me. For you, though, how did you kind of decide to spend your points when you were leveling up stuff in the band system?
Sure. So for me, the band system is more an evolution of the crest system from Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors.
Oh, yeah, that is a much better comparison.
Yeah, when you have like so many characters and you got to go into each one and you got to use your materials or whatever for raising each one, it's such a drag and it's such an annoyance, especially in Fire Emblem Warriors where they have repeated voice lines.
Oh my god.
Congratulations. Yes. You get a new character, especially like a new DLC character. You're going
to hear congratulations about 9,000 times for every character.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's like Camilla and she's like, oh, how nice. Oh, how nice. Yeah, so this is just a way to improve everybody at once to me, and I definitely found some of them are way more important than others, and I know you haven't got to Risky yet, but they also they are an important part of that because you will not get near enough of these points to max very many of these in the normal game, even going to the end of the requests. Like, you're going to have so many grays, and there's so many levels, especially of those parameter increases, like increasing strength, increasing HP. They go up to level 20 on those, which would be a crazy amount of band points to put them in. And so your first run, you got to be careful with those. And like we already talked about, like, pump them into SP. That's super important. I really recommend going with resistances. But something that I learned the hard way, and I wish I had done as soon as possible, there's a really cheap skill which raises the frequency of personas dropping. And when you have like 10 personas and you can't fit any more, it just gives you more PP. Mm-hmm. That's actually super, super important when you get into crafting specific personas.
Yes.
And getting like the super personas. Like, if you want to get, say, Metatron, the highest level, like holy persona, you need to have like a level 60 Archangel. And Archangel starts at like level 20, and that's a lot of resources to pump into that, because like I haven't got into like collecting every persona in the normal Persona games, but with this, it's like after the persona gets 5 levels, the experience costs, 5 levels from whatever it starts from, the experience for each subsequent level is just ridiculous.
Oh yeah, like once you get past that, it's almost like, okay, I can't do this anymore without just grinding.
Yeah. There's something hiding behind Arsene. My risky game project right now is to keep on pumping PP into Arsene and see what in the world's going on with him, because you can see how many skills they have left, and I have my Arsene at like level 55 and he still has 3 skills. So, like, what is he hiding?
I'm glad to hear that, because that's actually what I've been doing since the start of it. I've been putting primarily almost all of my PP really into him. Which, boy, thank you for that sentence now having been put out into the world.
Keep pumping Arsene with PP.
Put my PP in Arsene all day. So, yeah, but like also, we haven't even commented about this. When I played the demo, how many, like, I thought maybe max we had like 20 personas he could use.
Nope.
This is like a
67.
Yeah, it's obviously not like a full compendium like Persona 5 has like over 200, but for a game like this, that is insane, because like using a persona isn't just, oh hey, he has 2 or 3 more abilities. Especially with Joker, there are all these different variables, and every Showtime attack looks and works differently with every persona.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of fall into certain categories, mainly based on, like, whatever that persona's, like, main element is. Like, if you're using one who mainly does curse damage, like Arsene, and you have another one that mainly does curse damage, like, I don't know, someone else who has those skills. Like, they look, the blast looks the same, but there is at least one case of one of those Showtimes being totally different.
Yeah, and it's
you know
like,
which one I'm talking about?
I'm trying to put my head on it for it. It's like, no, my brain is like half working now.
It's Alice.
Oh, yes, thank you. But yeah, it's like, even going into that, like, they have all of these different animations that they had to make for it, and it's like, yes, they're not like making whole new, brand new characters, but like,
yeah,
the way they're like modeled, they all look fantastic. Like, they don't look half-assed at all, and like the way that fusion is implemented, it feels like a genuine Persona game. And that's even
I was actually able to do the fusion challenges on my own, unlike the Persona 5 ones, which were to me fucking impossible.
Yeah, because like honestly, like it feels like it actually makes it not only more simplified, but just more satisfying and easier to wrap your head around. Because I don't know how you feel about like trophies and stuff in most like games or whatnot. Like, I'm pretty big into hunting for trophies and stuff, but like Omega Force games usually have the worst, most grindy trophy list of all time. And I was genuinely surprised how, like, obviously you're going to have to sink dozens and dozens and dozens. Like, there's no way you'd get this, like, platinum trophy, like, sub 100 hours, probably. But, like, this is still a very doable platinum, especially by Omega Force standards.
I'd say maybe only like 2 playthroughs. The second playthrough has to be a risky playthrough, because they massively boost up. Basically, every enemy starts at level 80, and it just goes up to max.
But you actually don't even need to finish it, because I think the only risky trophy is for starting the game on risky, right?
No. What I was going to get into is you need to max out all of the band skills.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like, in terms of having to do a finished second playthrough.
Oh, yeah. You could just grind risky mode because you get massively more band experience in risky mode. And so that's where it comes in. Like, that's how you raise your characters once you hit the level cap. Also, I don't know if you've heard about this. They have incenses drop everywhere in risky mode.
Oh, I was wondering if that got increased in riskies. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, they drop from regular battles. Treasure chests have their normal loot replaced by incenses. So, like, for me, Joker is already level 99. Everyone else is, like, level 97 or 98. But I'm getting so many instances that I can pump it in. Joker has, like, 600 SP right now. Like, first thing I did, I just spent those all on him. Just click, 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 click. Give him all the SP.
Oh, my God.
Because he has Metatron, and I can revive everyone when I need to. And that costs, like, 86 SP to use.
That sounds...
I got 8 of those.
You're making me want to play this game more when I need to stop playing this game. But it is just, like, the flow of playing this game is so freaking fun. And, like, I'm glad to hear, like, that you've been, like, sinking so much time, like, into risky, not only because of how many aspects it changes into the game, but just, like, when I was done and I beat the game, I was like, wow, this was way deeper and way longer of an experience than I would have ever thought. Not even just because this is a, quote, spin-off, unquote, game of, like, this was just such a fun game to play. Like, even if I knew someone who just liked action games or, like, action RPGs and, like, oh, I have a loose understanding of Persona, like, just from a gameplay standard alone, this game will be so easy to recommend to people because... like, we've compared it to stuff like Kingdom Hearts. We've compared it to things like Bayonetta and, like, Bloodborne and even, like, Nier Automata. But at the end of the day, it's still, like, it's very unique in its own way. It's so RPG heavy, but it still uses these action elements, like, so well. And, like, whether you're playing it on risky and trying things that are all super crazy, or if you just want to throw it on easy and just, like, plow through everything, like... I cannot wait for this game to come out so I can be the world's biggest shill. Like, it's a little bit of a harder sell now because obviously the game costs like $90 in Japan to import. But, like...
yeah.
Once
Nobody knows what it is, even.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, like, we'll get into this with, like, questions we have from users and stuff about, like, how import-friendly this is. But, spoiler alert, this is a very import-friendly game. Like, if you don't mind not super understanding the story, like, the menus are very easy and whatnot to understand in English. Like, the game always, for the lack of a better word, has a giant red arrow telling you, hey, Dumbo, go here.
Yeah. Also, the menus are organized in a way. Even items are organized in a way that you can figure it out without really knowing what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if you want a revive item, it's always exactly below the SP restore items, and it says right there, SP. So, like, where are my life restore items if I have any?
Yeah, like
there.
I've played a few.
I don't have to read every single name of every item.
Yeah, like, I've played a few Warriors games, like, in Japanese only and whatnot, and, like, while it's been doable from, like, a just messing around in battle one, like, deeper games and deeper systems, like, you're clearly, like, missing a whole lot more. Like, even with zero understanding of, like, Japanese, like, you get your feel of, like, the only thing I would say if you have zero understanding of the Japanese language, you're going to really miss out in this game, outside of the story, is requests are going to be very difficult for you. Like, requests are not...
Definitely.
Are not... Well, thankfully, and I actually really appreciate this, they're not, as soon as you jump into a zone, they say, go here, go here, go here, this is where your request is. Like, they actually require you to, like, do some thought.
Yeah, some of them are like, you need to go to the area, it smells really bad... it's hidden somewhere. Do you know an area like that? And so you're thinking, okay, this is in Shibuya, the sewer section. And then you go back to the sewer section and you look for, an area that you haven't been to yet. Or, like, this is a really, like, high up area with lots of trees and you're in Sapporo. And you gotta, like, try to remember that. But you gotta be able to read that to even know, because it does not show you exactly where to go on those. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you on those.
Okay, so... pretty much there's like two big things I want to talk about before we kind of wrap up, because I don't want to keep you for like 9,000 hours. But I cannot thank you enough for, like, because I don't know about you, you are the only other person I know who I've been able to, like, at least think of this, like, in terms of talking very deep into this. Like, have you had a lot of other friends who picked up the game and been able to talk about it with?
No, nobody knows what I'm talking about, man.
Okay, so I'm glad that you feel my pain, because, man, it is just like, I am just a big weeb in Kansas, and I'm like, you guys heard about Scramble? And they're, I don't fucking know what you're talking about. You want eggs? Want some Persona eggs?
Yeah, I get, like, those... I'm not seeing them in person, but whenever I'm like writing it on Twitter or writing it in like my Discords, I get the impression of having like those glazed over eyes of people just like
I at least have one friend. Shout out to my friend Audrey, who is just a big dumb Ryuji fangirl, and I will just anytime like be like, okay, I'm gonna share this, and it's a dumb spoiler, but hey, it's got a funny thing of.
I really like Ryuji in this game.
He's got so many great moments. Oh my god, like all the characters have
his
really
relationship
funny.
With Sophia is so cute.
Oh my god. So
yeah, you
I'm
can
gonna
see in my trailer reaction when he like grabs Sophia's hand. I went, yeah.
I'm gonna. By the way, I loved. Oh no. Okay. I could just talk about dumb little story modes for it, but I want to talk DLC general and update stuff, and then do questions. But before we get into that, are there any like big glaring things that you think we should at least give a shout out to, or dive a little deeper into, if you think we're forgetting anything?
I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah, because like honestly, it's like at this point, all we're really missing is you and I just need to like sit down on a live stream and just show everyone every aspect of this game.
Yeah. There's like cooking that we didn't talk about, but that's
my
really
god!
Not
Also, hey, as soon as this game added cooking, I was like, how does Persona 5 not have cooking, but this game does? The guy runs a stupid fucking curry shop, and this is the game that does cooking, and it's like, oh my, it's so good. Like, it's so dumb that like adding cooking to RPGs has been like a weird trend, but man, I'm so here for it.
Yeah.
And also thank God that like none of the stuff you need for cooking comes from jails, and it's all social stuff, because man, that would have been really dumb if you had to like, oh hey, this one steak, it only comes from this boss like every like 1 out of 500 kills.
Yeah. I'm really glad they didn't do that. We didn't like touch on a lot of character specific gimmicks, but there's going to be a lot of like, I'll cover that a lot too, and that would take a real long time. Like, you know, like Sophia has like perfect timing stuff, and Zenkichi has his like rage mode. But
which, by the way, you do not get Zenkichi. Actually, I was surprised how long it took till you actually got your hands on him. I will say though, man, when you finally do, he is so just fun and satisfying, and wow, I'm sorry to any Goro or Kasumi fans out there, but I will take Sophie and Wolf over those two like any day. I'm ready for them to be in the next game over those two.
Yeah. Also, the Persona Awakening scenes.
Oh my god,
both of them are so good.
God, yeah, I totally forgot about that.
I'm just from regular P5 on scene where she awakens is just one of my favorite things ever, and man, both of these were so good. So people got a lot to look forward in this game. They don't even know.
By the way, shout outs to obviously there are two things you can bring about these characters. Number one, shout out to them adding a new girl for a Persona spinoff who is not just, hi, I'm generic random new girl who's about the plot. While yes, a lot of the plot at the end especially is like related to her, she definitely does have more of a personality than I feel like a lot of the other characters who get added through stuff is. And also, man, I just could not be more of a fan of Wolf. I like am not in super love with his design of like when he's like, I'm regular investigative like guy in a suit look, but like I am so here for his Phantom Thieves look. I really loved that, and just like it was so nice to finally have a Persona game have an adult work in the Persona universe. Like we haven't had that, at least in a video game, in over like 15 years.
Yeah, I was thinking of like the C's boss in P3 who's a big asshole. The partner detective in P4 who's a big asshole. Goro Akechi who's a detective who's a big asshole. This is nothing but assholes. It's nice to have a good guy.
Not only a good guy, like he works as he is the group mom and the group dad at the same time, and I'm so here for it.
Yeah. Like, also, we didn't mention his stealth section, which was hilarious to me. What a dork.
He
I think
yes
that
he
that
he
paid
is a
off well
he is a
there.
really great. And by the way, I am very curious to see who they get to be his voice actor. That'll be
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the English version of this game.
oh man, yes. I am so excited to like just have so many moments, especially from the story, that were like genuinely funny with like these characters. Like I just have less of an association with the Japanese voice actors. So like now like when that will get dubbed, I think like I'll appreciate going through the story like even more when it comes out in English.
Yeah, it made me realize how well dubbed P5 was because, like, I just got right back into the characters and, like, I didn't even skip a beat. I totally forgot that I had originally played through this game in English, and, like, they inhabited those characters so accurately, I felt.
Yeah, and that was the benefit to this being a true sequel of like taking place a couple months after Persona 5 of like
Yeah.
that dynamic, like obviously like they'd spent some time apart from each other, but just like those moments of them just sitting around like talking in like Joker's room or like being in the van, like those like moments of like, hey, we're just going to like hang out, and like how that team dynamic works just as well when they're in the real world as like when they're being the Phantom Thieves in the jails was just like it
Yeah.
came across so well. And like that's so hard to like sell because like there's this weird dichotomy of sometimes of like, hey, you are in an RPG where you can only play as 4 people at a time, but this is a group of over like 8 people, so you can't always be
Yeah.
playing as everyone at the same time. So it's hard to have that like dichotomy of we are an active team, like we're working together. That was actually one of my favorite parts about Tokyo Mirage Sessions of when you get all the sessions of like, even though you're only playing with like 3 people at a time in that party, every time you're in battle, every person from your freaking talent agency is fighting in that battle. So it never really
Yeah,
felt
I'm
like it was
actually
just
playing through
3
that
of
game
you.
myself, too. Yeah. I one thing I was going to mention was, gosh, what was it? Being able to switch not just who you're playing in battle, but also what your party consistency is just while you're in the middle of a jail was a really good addition to me too. So that, if, Morgana's run a little bit low on SP, you need a new healer, just like go into the pause menu. You're just in the middle. You're not even at like a checkpoint or anything. And just swapping those out was really good too. Smart that they limited it like not into battle. But even if they had, I think that still probably would have worked out okay too.
Well, and even in the times when you have of like when you do die in boss fights, how there's the hey, do you want to restart? And then if you restart, it gives you the menu before you get to back in the boss fight, so you can. So like when I died a whole bunch for having a lot of resistive elements in the 3rd boss fight, I then just go back,
Yeah.
switched everyone out, and I didn't have to like start all the way back before that boss fight started.
Yeah, I remember doing that with the second boss with bringing Yusuke in, who I hadn't used much until that point, and that made a big difference.
Also, little weird call out that like I love that this is such a small touch, but like how time completely stops and slows down when you have your gun pulled out or when you have your persona equipped.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
good.
love that little thing of how everyone's gun is a little bit different, and they have all that like own little thing of like how this is such a small dumb thing, but the fact that Yusuke can switch from full auto to like semi-automatic is like such a dumb little thing, but like I appreciate it so much, as well as like, hey, if you press R2 with a couple of people when your gun is out, you can do like a little backstep. And not only is it a backstep that like helps out for like grouping stuff, is that those moments when you're moving, it's like super hot. When you move, they move. So as soon as you stop moving, it kind of like gave me moments of like, okay, I kind of want to like get everyone a little bit closer, because like it is about zoning. Even though like your boss fights, like when you're not doing the scrambles, like you can get a good amount of people like kind of spread out, and it is like getting them all tight and close together, so when you do those all-out attacks, they just do as much damage as possible.
yeah. Sophia especially benefits with that with her alternate fire.
Oh
which
my
just, like,
god,
sucks
yeah, when I
everyone
got
in.
I did her, I leveled up her last just because I was just going down the menu, and when I got that I was like, oh my god, why did I not do her sooner? I had
Sophia's a
no
great
idea, like, and
character.
I know you've talked about this as well, and I don't really want to get into it just in terms of, like, leave a little bit of gameplay spoilers for other people.
Yeah.
But, man, Sophia has so many cool different systems I would never have thought of when playing as her in the demo. I mean, playing as her in the beginning.
Yeah, she really does. Everyone's like that though. Like again, when I was making writing these guides out, which I'll probably share to you so you can have a look. There is just so much more to every character. Even like I thought I knew everything about Makoto, and I get in it. No. She has so many more like uses, and like her buff applies in so many more situations that I didn't even realize just playing through the original game. So I just have a lot of fun for like my second run through and using all this stuff that I learned about all the characters. It's definitely worth everyone trying out. Just go into, because like any open area, you can try out most of the moves. Some of their stuff only works if you actually hit an enemy with it, like aerial attacks. But you might not realize, like, if you just jump and you don't do any attacks and you use a heavy attack, for characters that have like a self buff, that also activates their buff. So if you want to like reactivate On's fire on her whip, or if you want to reactivate let's see who else, like Zenkichi's rage mode, you can do that in air, you can do that in certain attacks. It's really cool, all the stuff you can do, especially Yusuke, who like throws counters in the middle of this stuff. But yeah, I don't want to go too far. And
I could sit here and talk about Ryuji's dive kick, his infinitely repeatable dive kick all day.
Oh my god!
Like, especially when you get to those dumb floating
Mario
enemies,
badge,
and there's nothing more satisfying to than you just be like, up triangle, up triangle, up triangle, up triangle, up triangle, and it's just so funny.
It's a Goomba stomp.
It really is, yeah. Oh my god. Speaking of Goomba stomping our wallets, though, let's talk about DLC. So this is kind of a weirdly, I don't know what the right word would be, like, people aren't sure how to feel about DLC. So, in very un-Atlas and even Koei Tecmo tradition, this game launched without a season pass. Like, the week of this game's release, I was like, hey guys, get ready. There's going to be season pass details, like, 100,000%. And in the game code, there is mention of Persona 3 for, like, in a character slot sort of way, so we at least know, like, there's at least kind of a hook maybe possibly already in there. But before I kind of give you and anyone listening to this my prediction with how DLC is, I'd be curious as how do you think, or what do you think Persona 5 Scramble is going to handle their DLC in terms of when they roll it out and what will be in it?
I see. I really don't think that there will be a new playable character. That would really straight up shock me, based on precedent from Fire Emblem Warriors, with how important they feel like implementing a character. It needs to like fit with the systems. In this game, the system is that this all takes place in a story. It's not so meta that you can just like suddenly slot in, you know, a character from P3 or a character from P4. As much as I would love that, unless they add an extra mode. But if they do that, I feel like they would have this pressure to like allow you to use that character in the normal story mode stuff, which just wouldn't fit. Like, you can't just drop a character into that. It's like dropping Kasumi into regular Persona 5 without justifying like why she's there. It's just not satisfying in the same way, and I don't think that they would do that. Like, even when they dropped in new characters into Hyrule Warriors, which is very, you know, like you're just picking stages from a menu. You can only use like characters that weren't in the story in free mode, where just anything goes. You know, you'll see like double versions of Link and whatnot. I'd say definitely we will see costumes, just straight out. Like, that's like a Omega Force tradition. They always have tons of costumes, and they're always great. But I think Persona 5 set a precedent for that. On top of that, I think maybe we could see another jail, like an extra, like, super challenging jail. Even something like the Tokyo Mirage Sessions DLC, where you have like an arena where you just have like really hard battles. Like, they could slot that in. They could add more personas in, maybe more personas that are exclusive to Risky Mode other than Lucifer. They might update the game to allow you to like start in maybe they could allow you to start in Risky Mode, but that would really suck. Other than that, maybe more modes outside, like just a straight up challenge mode. I'm kind of picturing one similar to like the Smash for Wii U or the Super Smash Bros. Brawl challenge mode, where you like kind of have a little progression system. I feel like the game would work well just for that. That's about everything that I can think of right now.
Okay, so yours is actually very interesting. Yours is definitely a lot more like kind of smaller, nitty-gritty stuff. Mine is, I'm thinking that they're going to go very all out, but the reason they're going to justify it is usually when Atlas games come out, they always have all their DLC ready. Koei Tecmo this is actually pretty unprecedented for them, of them having a game that does not have a worldwide release. And I think that they're capitalizing on this by not having any DLC at launch in the Japanese release. So I think by...
Well, I'm not sure. Sorry to interrupt you there, but Hyrule Warriors didn't have a worldwide release, and Fire Emblem Warriors didn't have a worldwide release. The Dynasty Warriors games usually
hold on. I know Hyrule, when there was like a little bit of a delay for it, but I'm 99% sure Fire Emblem came out the same day.
It didn't.
What?
It didn't. There was a 3-month gap.
No way for Fire Emblem Warriors. That I physically can't believe. I'm wikiing checking this right now.
I know because I bought it in Japanese early, and I covered it a lot on my channel.
What on earth?
We can check it up. I might be wrong on the time.
No. Okay, you were definitely... It was a month. It was September to October. I was like, 3 months? I was like, man, that's like... That game got announced in February.
So I went too far on the time, but there was a separated time.
Correct.
Month, but yeah, but they didn't start talking about DLC until it was out worldwide.
Yes, so that goes...
And to me, that's very different from the simultaneous release.
True, but they're definitely a lot closer than Atlas games, which usually end up being about 5 to 6 months per regional releases. So my notion for what I think they're going to do with this is they're going to kind of mix both companies' DLC plans into one, and what they're going to do is wait until the maybe Asian release in June or the worldwide release in July and officially announce the season pass. Because think about it like this. People already hate how Atlas does their DLC for most stuff. Like, I don't know if people follow like Atlas's West Twitter account. They had a post earlier this week that was like, Persona 5 Royal is going to feature all of the Persona 5 DLC that was originally paid for is now going to be free, and pre-orders come with a theme. And then I retweeted that, and it was like, also, the game launches with $60+ of DLC and optional boss fights. It was just like, it's like, yes, I mean, hey, you guys do a good game, but you definitely are like, probably like the worst Japanese companies at doing DLC at the same time. But like, the funny thing with it was, if they did a season pass close or a little after release in February, and then when the game comes out like 6 months or 5 to 6 months later in America, all these people are going to be like, well, hey, why don't we have all this like content? Or like, it's going to make a $30 or $20 season pass like a lot more hard to swallow with such a big time difference. So let people sit on this game, because there is a lot of game like to this, especially just going through your first playthrough. Save the DLC for a worldwide release at the same time, and split it up into 3 packs, and have in between each release pack also do free updates in like similar ways to what they did with Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem and even just Dynasty Warriors, of like adding new things, adding like smaller color palette changes to costumes, and like having different things like that, but then have the main DLC be themed to different games. So have one for Persona 3, which is like, hey, you can play as Persona 3's main protagonist, the boy or the girl version. For Persona 4, they could do like, hey, here's you and here's Adachi. And then for Persona 5, they could do a Royal Pack, which adds in Goro and adds in Kasumi. Because people are actually a little bit sad. I know there's probably not a ton of people. I think people are more confused Kasumi's not in it, but also a little bit sad that Goro's not in it. So adding, I think, those in would be really, really good to it. And with each one of those, kind of like you mentioned, like a DLC, if not sort of arena, like a mini Mementos.
I was wondering, like, where you feel they could slot these characters in. Like, what would the characters even do? Or like, I
think the way it would work is, hey, when you're playing through the game, it's like when you go to the city select menu. It would just be in their own little section of, hey, here is a Tartarus mini Mementos, or here is a Inaba like Shadowverse version, and like stuff like that of.
So you're thinking more like expansion pack?
Yeah,
level
so
stuff
like
with a whole
it's kind of making kind of like not very story heavy, because I can't imagine they do a lot of story, but it would be like work your way in there, and let's say there's maybe like 10 to 20 requests for these many Mementos. So not necessarily story-heavy stuff, but it'll have new music, it'll have smaller arenas, because, like, you can't just say, hey, add a new map, because each map is so complex in this game. It's not like a Dynasty Warriors map, where they're very flat and just kind of, like, more maze-like, where there's a lot of verticality to every level. So keep the levels kind of smaller, and I think you could incorporate the characters pretty easily in the sense of like, hey, they can be used in the story if you want, but obviously you have to be aware of like weaknesses and resistances and stuff like that, and it would just like. I think you would have a lot less of those like contextual moments of them all talking to each other, and they won't have stuff of them when they're going through the story, but they already have that in the sense of characters, even if you're not playing as them when you're exploring the jails, are still talking even if they're not actually in the jail present with you right there.
Personally, I somewhat doubt that, because I feel like when they do add a character, they want it to not be on its own little, like, cordoned off little section. Like, that almost sounds like Arkham Asylum DLC, where you can play as the Joker, but just in, like, these challenge rooms.
No,
and
yeah.
I can't think of...
Like, the challenge rooms would be like an anyone kind of thing, and the characters would just be immediately in the game kind of thing.
Yeah, but I just like thinking about other story modes and how they implemented, like, the new DLC characters, and this game's, like, almost all story mode. Like, they don't even have a presence, and I feel like... There's kind of a mismatch where, like, I'm playing as, you know, the P3 protagonist, but as soon as, like, a story scene starts, like, any characters associated with that just disappear and we're back to the Phantom Thieves. Like, I would almost view it more like, almost like token adding them in. Like, you get a skin for Joker where it is the P3 protagonist or something like that.
So basically it's going to just feel like you're using PC mods, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, that's how I envision getting them into the game. That's just how I feel.
No, and I get that, but also this is what makes this game so interesting to talk about and like talk hypotheticals, is because this is, like we mentioned, it's so out of their wheelhouse. They could do anything.
I'm trying to draw comparisons, but I might be totally off base.
Yeah, the potentials are so open because of how different the game is, and especially in terms of its menus. Like, for all we know, their DLC, all they end up doing is just adding in free mode that just says, okay, hey, here, now you can do whatever you guys want. Here's some characters or whatever, and we added like 4 to 5 new maps or whatever. Just to...
That I could see, like, it's free mode, and it just takes you right to, like, jail select screen, and you have new characters where, like, that mode would have to be completely added before I could see getting additional characters, because everyone who's in the current roster is, like, so integrally tied into the events of the story. But where if, like, they strip out the story and it's just like a menu-based thing, that I could actually see.
Okay, last weird DLC question before we go into general questions, and then we finish the show so that I can actually get a drink. What do you do you think there is any chance that they make me the happiest boy in the world and add co-op to this game? Because I think it's possible, but I feel like with how menu-heavy the gameplay is, it would be really hard for, especially on smaller TVs, for split screen to have everything be readable. Because I would love to play this in co-op, but I feel like with how platform-heavy, it's also like that's what makes it a lot harder.
I think possibly. And when I think about like character switching, how that's been managed before, like each person could be in command of like 2 characters, which is generally how that works on a team of 4 in like Fire Emblem Warriors. Like you actually can access other characters beyond like that, but usually it's like you have 2 to swap between. When you do Muso attacks in other games, it also does a similar like slowing down time effect. How that's been handled before is like just the enemies that you're going to definitely hit get slowed down. So they could still possibly do like the persona menu selection by slowing things down there, just relatively to the enemies around the character that's doing that. That is a little bit exploitable, but I'm not sure if it matters that much in a co-op setting. Or maybe they'll just make it real time, because they'd have to change like the aiming to real time and also the persona like skill selecting to real time in order to make that work.
How about if they did do it, would you want it? Or like, I don't know how much.
Of course I'd want it.
Okay, I wasn't sure like for you how much you ever actually like do co-op for these kind of games.
Occasionally, I'll like bring my wife or a friend along to play some, but I don't know anyone who's as into these games as I am in like my general area. So usually, That's a lot of that. I mean, I love having co-op, and I do think that Warriors games and this type of game, combat especially, is great for that because it's really easy to pick up. You don't have long combo lists to learn. You just kind of intuitively figure out the characters through experimentation. I just, because of the slowdown mechanics is like the only thing that throws a wrench into that. Like, how exactly would they handle that? But I'm sure that they could do that. Because if you were trying to pick your Persona skills while in danger, it would kind of ruin a lot, that whole system of, like, choosing your Persona, especially if you're, like, Joker and you have 10 Personas to scroll through. But maybe it would work similar to, like, a Kingdom Hearts system where you can, like, get ready the skill while you're still moving around, or I'm not sure. I'm thinking more like how it would function. And I'm thinking if it doesn't seem like it would function well, it probably won't be implemented.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of quality standards.
The possibilities are endless. And I'm not going to lie, even if this game gets no more DLC and we just get a couple of quality of life updates for like small bugs and little fixes like that, I am very confident in saying this is the best Persona non-mainline title I've ever played. This is including the dancing games. This is including Arena. This is including Q. It just delivered on everything I wanted and then some. Now, also,
by a mile.
This is so up my wheelhouse, I might as well have bribed them to make this game. Because, like I mentioned before, I am a diehard Atlas fan, and I am a super, super diehard, like, Koei Tecmo fan. So to see this actually happen and to somehow be such a outlandish success, because I know you'd mentioned you really weren't following it, a lot of the game's coverage, because there was so much silence from the reveal to, like, November after Royal came out in Japan. But, like, that first trailer is literally just, like, 30 seconds of gameplay of, like, okay, shows a scramble, shows, like, maybe, like, a 5-hit combo, and then a super. And then the second trailer is, like, 5 minutes long, and it shows off platforming, snowboarding, multiple characters, switching, story segments, platforming, social elements, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Which, like, by the way, there's a couple of interviews already out there. I highly, highly, highly recommend people checking it out if they can, of the concept art for this game that's been coming out. There's not an official art book or a release date yet, but the concept art is absolutely stunning. There is a really cool behind-the-scenes video if you bought the special edition of the game about how the theme was made. Which I at least highly recommend checking out the video if you can, because Lotus Juice, the guy who did the rap lyrics for Persona 3 and worked on a whole bunch of other songs for the series after that, he actually did the lyrics for, oh my god, I'm blanking on the name of the battle theme. Was it I Am Stronger?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
So he did all the initial vocals for Lynn, and there is a test version of him singing for her to kind of get a reference of, like, how the singing, like, tempo of it goes. And man, I want nothing more than his version of that song to be released, because it is so unique. It's my equivalent of the release the Snyder Cut for Justice League, except this one would be good and would actually be fulfilling.
Yeah. It's actually worthwhile use of your time.
So many cool different things. Also, little development things, like this game actually did start as a Samurai Warriors clone, but then turned into this because they were like, the only reason it changed is because the only way they thought they could make a Muso game work like this is if it involved time travel. But for whatever reason, Persona Studio was like, no, we do a lot of dumb shit, but we're not going to do time travel.
Oh, thank God.
I mean, I would have been interested in, like, seeing, like, their medieval, like Edo period, like, costumes for sure. But, like, man, I'm like so glad though that, like, this is, like, so out of their comfort zone and they just nailed every beat for me.
Yeah, they did a remarkable job.
You up for some questions real quick so I can hopefully finish this up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because if I don't finish in 20 minutes, I think my wife is just actually going to leave me. So our first question comes from fellow network, the Velvet Network, who says, in terms of licensed Muso titles, how do you rank Persona 5 Scramble? I have already basically gone on a 9-hour tangent and said that this is my favorite, but Shane, what about you? Where does this rank for your personal headcanon?
It's kind of a different beast. Mechanics-wise, nothing has been done better in the Warriors franchise. Nothing even comes close. I enjoy, like, that Battlefield kind of gameplay. So to me, like Fire Emblem Warriors is still like the best like mix of Warriors with something else. But because this is so different, it's like apples and oranges. You know, you can't really compare, because if I'm in the mood for playing like a Persona 5 Scramble, you know, jail or boss fight, it's not really the same if I'm in the mood for like doing a more like battlefield wide tactical experience like Fire Emblem Warriors or something like that. But yeah, for gameplay, this is the best they've ever created, so that would make it number one.
High praise, the highest of praise. Our next questions, these come from we have some Discord questions. LSD Accent Core says, is it worth getting on Switch? And also, is the game playable on the train? Basically meaning like more like moving around portable stuff, or should I stick with the PS4 version? I kind of gave my opinion on like, if you have a pick, go for it, but I still trust the technical wizards at Koei Tecmo of like, I would not disregard this portable version.
Yeah, same. If you don't have a PS4, feel totally comfortable getting it on the Switch. If you have both, you need to think about like where you want to play it. I think that Warriors games and this game are great on the Switch. So I mean, I've spent plenty of a train ride playing them, and I think this would fit right into that. I've even spent like long train rides with my PS Vita playing like Final Fantasy releases on that. And I know long RPG sessions, they work just fine. Like you can turn them on, and it's pretty easy to get right back into the middle of a story scene during the duration of like your little portable time, and then turn it right back off. It works just fine for me. So I'd say both versions are valid. Just depends on where you're going to play it.
All right, this is a question I'm very much looking forward to hear your answer. This comes from, oh boy, I'm going to just butcher this. Elisher Smortal, or Elisur Mortal, says, I don't know if this is too late, but hey, good. Guess what? This is not too late. You missed the cutoff by 2 hours, but we're going long anyway. How does...
We've been recording for longer than that.
Exactly. How does Zenkichi stack up with other dad/dad-like characters in the Persona series? If you want to throw other SMT dad figures in there, that works too. Very cute of you to think any dad in an SMT game's ever been worth a damn. So for you, where does he rank in the hashtag rank my dads?
Number 2
is number 1. I'm gonna guess Dojima.
Yes,
that's okay.
Well, Dojima. I hadn't thought about Dojima. I was thinking of Futaba's dad.
Starts with an S. Starts with an S.
Oh. I've lost. It's lost.
So there we go.
Yeah, Sojiro is my number 1. I love Sojiro very much. I think I put Zenkichi at number 2. Dojima's kind of a dick to his daughter.
I'm a sucker for Dojima still.
Really?
I bet if the dub is handled right, I could give Wolf the number 1 spot, but I'm just such a sucker for Dojima's hard-boiled detective fucking moments that I still have to give it to him. But Wolf is super solid, super close second place. And, I mean, the fact that he is just way more badass than any of the other dads, because guess what? He actually has Persona. It makes it even more worth it.
He also goes right into it in the metaverse too.
God, he fucking does.
You say, yeah.
We got a couple questions left real quick. This one is from our Facebook group. Alan Martinez says, is the game good enough for people to be played by people... Sorry, my English eyes aren't wanting to work right now. Is this game good enough to be played for people who get kind of bored by your typical Dynasty Warrior gameplay, aka playing for 30 minutes and then giving up?
Yeah, because like a Dynasty Warriors battle is a longer endeavor. Like, how long is each battle in this game that isn't a boss fight? You know, like a minute?
If that, yeah. Like, boss fights you're definitely going to sink, like, a good amount of time into, because those are, like, not a slog, but they're definitely, like, a journey. But, yeah, like, every fight, like, especially because they're segmented off, like, you're lucky to get over 60 seconds.
Yeah, I've had people raise concerns about, like, oh, the game looks very stop and starty, but because, like, you transition into battle and out of battle so quickly... You know, it's just a natural transition. If there was like a little loading screen, you know, between each one, it would really suck, but there isn't. So You're just constantly in that jail environment, and the battles are just a part of it. They're just initiated rather than having the enemies just waiting around doing nothing for you, which means that you've got to move around the battlefield. You have so many, move around the jail, and you have so many movement options. You need to approach the enemy in a certain way. Then you need to execute the battle, and then you need to like think ahead, like where you're going to be going next and how you're going to deal with the next enemy that might be really close by. It's like you never really like get that long stretch of the same, exhausting gameplay. You're like constantly switching it up, with the like high energy and lower energy. So it's just a really, relaxing game to play, where the battles are really intense, but the exploration's really fun. So I think that if other Warriors type games haven't really done it for you, this is just not. It's more of an action RPG. It's not like too much of a Warriors experience, just in terms of what it feels like playing.
Yeah, it's weird to like call it a detriment, but like I feel like Omega Force being the developer is almost this game's biggest like turn off to people without having actually played it. Of like,
yeah, especially because
it's made by the Dynasty Warriors guys.
So...
It's probably just like another one of their games and stuff for it. But it's like, no, that's why, man. I hope as soon as we can get a demo in English, the better for that game pre-orders. Because like as soon as people in America can like actually like get their hands on the game, like the better. Like I'm going to a convention next week, which will actually be in our show notes of where I'm going to go over all the upcoming Atlas games. I'm just going to bring Scramble. I'm going to say, everybody just play this game. You're all going to...
Yay!
I just want everyone to experience this as much as humanly possible, please.
Yes.
I'm gonna use this question because we did already kind of talk about it a little bit as DLC. Matthew Sadlier says, for lack of a better words, if we could incorporate a previous character into Scramble, like other Persona like predecessors and stuff, like Chie or people like that, who would you want to? I'm just gonna have to pick my husbando. I want Yosuke. Please give me Yosuke. I don't care what iteration of him. I just want Yosuke and Ryuji to do a team up move, and I'll be very happy.
For me, like, my waifu has always been Chie, so I'd be very happy if she got in there. Let's just throw Teddy in there. Let make him be like the tingle of the game.
Oh my god, I don't know why it like just hit me now, but like, just how much just damage Chie's legs and Makoto's fist could do in this game.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. Next question comes from Matthew Patterson, who says, are there any triggering moments like in Persona 5 Royal you guys think could happen? Now what he means by this in terms of like is like I'm guessing like anything controversial. I didn't pick up anything, but I was definitely like half really hearing the story. Did you see anything at all that you think might like be picked up in a Western like media presence and be like, oof, can you believe they had this scene in Scramble?
There's child abuse in the game with the leader of the Osaka jail.
Yeah,
and his story's pretty dark.
I don't know, that's honestly one of those weird ones of like, I know they're not going to do any of it in the marketing, and it'd be like, it's one of those things of like the perspective that it's shown and it's so late into the game. I'd be very surprised if more people kind of hear about that, but you're right. I could kind of see how it gets that aspect. So that
it's not like Persona 5 sexual abuse. It's like emotional and verbal abuse to actually multiple people, but that's generally like why they're motivated and kind of corrupted like that. But yeah, that story gets pretty dark. Yeah, that'd be the only thing that really stands out to me.
Okay. Our last question comes from Marakua Peru, who says, do you consider this game a true sequel to the original story of Persona 5 or just a spin-off? And how many hours did it take for you to finish? So we did the hours one. For me, personally, I, at the end of this adventure, felt... And not even at the end. From playing it all, it legitimately... I felt like if they just called this Persona 5 2... which would be a very terrible title, I think it would live up to that. I think it does feel like it doesn't actually feel like a spin-off to me. That's actually why I wanted to say that it is my favorite non-mainline game. I know I've used the word spin-off a couple times in this podcast, but it's like it hones in on what the original Persona 5 story is so much and just uses that as a stepping stone to tell its own story that I feel like it really earns that title and hint in the marketing of, hey, this is a true continuation of the story.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It is a sequel, and in fact, if you look at the trailers, you'll see that they kind of jokingly throw a 2 in there when they're like doing the logo reveal, and it looks like the all-out attack where everyone's like piling in.
Yeah, that
like
is that
B5, and then a 2 flies out, and then S comes on.
I legitimately think they started throwing that into the later trailers because like I feel like they were worried that people in Japan were going to pick this up, and they're like, "Hey guys, this is Persona 5 2. Please buy this. Please buy this."
Yeah, they wanted people to realize it's not just a spin-off.
I'm glad though that this is doing really, really well because it actually we talked a little bit about its numbers. It was the second highest debuting non-mainline Persona game for its opening week, which is really impressive. I think it was only behind Persona Q, which I think did like 300,000 units in its first week. So before we wrap up, I just want to say, Shane, thank you so much for rambling with me and ranting about this game. I could not have thought this went any better, and at the very least, we were able to vent a large majority of our Persona 5 Scramble thoughts out into the world.
Yeah, it's really good to get like my thoughts about this game that I haven't been able to talk freely and like to someone who even understands what I'm even like getting at.
That's true.
It's like a release of all this stuff. It's very therapeutic for me. I think.
That's true. My wife has had to watch me play most of this, and she's been like, I understand Dynasty Warriors games, but these are all the RPG aspects just like turn her off.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't get the menus. Like it's like it all makes sense until you have to stop. When the menus come out, I'm like, oh man, I'm out. I don't get this.
Yeah, my wife has also been watching me play through the game, and she's actually been waiting for me to free up the PS4 so that she can play through it. She hasn't even played Persona 5. She just really enjoys these characters so much and really enjoys like the gameplay. So
yeah, once the game is in English and on Switch, actually, I fully plan on just giving it to her because she's a lot more adept at just playing that like portably. And I think once if I just like put it on easy, she'll have a fun time just burning through it and be like, "What'd you think of the story?" She's like, "I don't know, I just killed everybody."
Yeah, the language is my wife's much better than me at Japanese, so that's no problem for her. So she's gonna get right at it.
Yeah, mine might be a little bit mad. I'd be like, "You're Asian, you know Japanese, right?" Like, no, not Japanese though. Big difference. But yeah, so before I go into pimping all of our stuff, where can people find you in your myriad of YouTube channels?
All right, so I have youtube.com/ actually. I don't want to give links because I changed my name, so it's still /GamesBrain. But just find me on Shane Brained on YouTube. You can also find my Warriors stuff on Warriors Dojo. There's links to the channels on whichever one you find, and that like little related channel section. You can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/ShaneBrained, and also I'm running a Patreon which funds both Shane Brained and Warriors Dojo, which is also under Shane Brained. So those are all my links.
And all of your specific channels and everything will be in the show notes as well. So if anyone goes down to the descriptions, they can find it like that if they want to do the easier way out. If you guys would like, speaking of the show notes I'd mentioned earlier, if you are anywhere near Kansas City next week, I will be at NakaCon representing SMTN. I am doing 2 panels, at least right now. One is visual novels for beginners, which I am very excited about because I'm a big dumb visual novel weeb, and second is the Atlas 2020 fan panel, where we're going to go through everything Atlas has done, is doing, and plans on doing in the year of 2020, which is spoilers, a lot of Persona 5 related things, but there are other things. So if you guys would like to come to that, get free stuff, and just make fun of me for being on a stage all by myself up alone, it is going to be not the worst panel at that convention. I can guarantee that. I'm at least not the absolute worst panelist. Besides that,
high praise.
Besides that, you can follow me on Twitter. My personal account is at Torchwood4SP. You can follow the Twitter for the podcast at SMT Network. We are super, super duper close to 1,500 subscribers. Followers. That's a big difference. If you would like to, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel by just searching Shin Megami Tensei Network or my name, which is Spencer Presley. You can join the Facebook group by going to facebook.com/groups/SMT Network, and you can join the daily discussions there. We have a Discord. The link is in the description for that because Discord is absolutely impossible to link to with words. If you'd like, you can subscribe and review us on iTunes. That helps a whole heck of a ton. I have got to stop this episode. It has been going on for so long, but I know you guys all love long episodes. I love long episodes. Shane, I appreciate you for letting me steal you for like over 3 hours. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure.
Would you like any final words for before we say goodbye?
Play Persona 5 Scramble. Really great game.
I also would have accepted your best hee-ho impression.
Hee-ho! That's what I got.
Hee-ho.
Come on, Pharaoh, make a wish, pick a tide, and decide what's right. Can't you see the light? Them to stop dancing around a mirror in circles, crying one more thing. Be the killer, ready to walk through the looking glass. Feel free, love, I've been just awaiting you another place like that. Don't let me sleep, I've come all this way. Stay strong, stand up now and please make a wish. Come on, Pharaoh, make a move, try to shine.